What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us at Candid Truth. We're going to talk about the truth and we're going to get candid with it. What are we talking about today? We're going to talk about where we live, what the Bible says about this place that we live on. And I got my good friend here, Josh from Founded Earth Brothers. He's got an amazing channel. Go check out Founded Earth Brothers on YouTube and check out the amazing videos he's got. Say what's up, Josh.
What's up, everybody? I'm blessed to be here, and I know I'm probably not the only one doing the air drums during the intro music.
That's funny
I'm
because
like,
I
I
was
hope we
over
don't go
here
live and
dancing.
you're just like jamming out.
Yeah, man, I was sitting there like trying to share this post on my phone and it was lagging. I was just sitting there like dancing and heart racing because the
Yeah,
countdown going down and all that. But man,
yeah, I love it.
I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I remember it was about 2016 maybe 2015 that I first started hearing about terms like flat earth and things like that. And it's like, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm not even going to look at that. I'm not going to waste my time on that. But a friend of mine who believed the same as me on a lot of other things was saying, dude, you just really need to look at it, even if you just want to debunk it. So I was like, well, that'll be easy, So I looked into it and I started seeing a lot of good evidences, a lot of things that were tough to debunk, honestly. And for like 8 months, I think it was just around that amount of time, I was looking at the topic and I was like, okay, both models could work. I could see, well, you know, it could be a globe and we could be orbiting and all this stuff, or it could work the other way where we're stationary and the luminaries are spinning over us. It could be that the moon is smaller than Earth and the sun is 1,000 times bigger than Earth, and they just happen to be the right distance to where they eclipse each other perfectly. You know what I'm saying? Or they're both local and similar in size, and that's why they eclipse each other. You know what I mean? So you could look at it like, okay, both models could work. And I was doing that for months. And then the longer I looked at it, the only model that began to crumble was this heliocentric globe model. I didn't expect that. I didn't go into this thinking that that was going to happen, you know? And so I want to talk about this topic openly, candidly, honestly, from scripture and from science. And I wish that we could look at all kinds of topics without getting triggered, without getting offended, without saying unsubscribed. Why can't we just talk about stuff? Why can't we look at things logically and rationally and biblically and see where the evidence weighs out? And you can you can believe different than I can, and we can still be friends. And me and Josh don't believe the same on everything, and we still have each other on our shows and talk about topics, because why are we going to let literally the shape of something destroy our friendship and our relationships with each other? So
Yeah,
I
I've seen it
hope.
break up marriages. Like, sadly, like
Oh,
the truth about the world, believing what the Bible says, and investigating it. I've seen marriages fall apart. That is like the saddest thing, and
that
it's
really
something
is.
that you should not really be divided over, or it shouldn't bother us that somebody believes something different. Like, especially globe believers, that doesn't bother me. I'm not like, oh my goodness, you believe that, because I believed it for
Yeah.
more than 30 years and finished my master's degree, was teaching science, thought I knew it all, and was getting wise. And I had a big humbling experience that made me investigate it. And I think you probably investigated it before I did.
Wow.
And I was, I think, early 2017, just starting to have some miracles happen again for the second time in my life that
Wow.
humbled me enough to investigate it. And I would never, it's not like I already thought that I was humble, but being humble enough to look into that took me some miracles. And I wasn't even looking into it because I was like, maybe this is what the Bible says. I was looking into it
Yeah.
like, why is this guy talking about something so dumb? Let me
Yeah.
just see what he's saying about it. That was how they clickbaited me, because I was like, this sounds so stupid. Let me just click on that. And oh my goodness, the Holy Spirit was like, this is true. Look into it, and it was a ride from there. So it's been a journey. And I saw
Amen.
you near the start of this journey. That's when we met at a meetup, and I was
Yeah.
terrified, thinking, what if somebody finds out I believe in this? And of course my friends happen to be at that place, and now they make fun of us to this day. But it's
Wow.
worth being made fun of to find the truth. No matter how crazy it sounds, it's worth being made fun of. And that's one of the prayers I had answered was, show me the truth about creation. I don't care how crazy it sounds. And that was how I worded it. And,
That's
and he
awesome.
showed me the truth about creation. And it did sound crazy at first, but the more you look into it, the more it sounds logical and makes sense, and it's powerful, life changing. And I see a lot of life changing brothers and sisters in the chat. I see Tracy Jones and Tyler Porter. Good to see you guys and many others. If I've missed you, I see a lot of you in there. Some truth soldiers.
Amen.
Welcome. If this is your first time seeing this topic, be patient. We're going to dive deep into this. I'm excited. I've
Yeah.
compiled some slides to go over some things, but it's trying to compile 8 years of research into just one little quick presentation is not easy. So we are not covering everything, but we
Right.
will try to answer as many questions, and then we'll have a Q&A at some point whenever you guys want to,
Yeah.
beginning or end.
So I've been wanting to build a presentation on this topic for years, but where I worked before doing YouTube, it wasn't a topic I was allowed to talk about. So who has time after work to build presentations, So I never did it. And but I've been wanting to talk about it. And I'm like, man, I just need to invite Josh on. And I said, just give us like biblical cosmology 101. I want to see scripture and science. When I first looked into it, I only did science because I was like, scripture can be interpreted different ways and this and that. So I just looked at the scientific evidence. And like I said, you can see things too far away. There was a lot of things that didn't make sense about orbits and tilts and all these things. And I just started being like, wow, like I was convinced through science. And then when I looked at the scriptures, I was like, oh my goodness, like how could we ever have believed the heliocentric globe when I'm seeing things in Genesis? So I can't wait to get into this, man. Let's check it out. Here's your first slide.
Yeah, let's get started. I wanted to pull up something without going into a huge history lesson that would just show you some key figures. Because when you start talking about this, the two biggest questions is why would they lie?
Yeah.
And who all are they? And so the who they are and the why they lie is a huge topic. It's an important topic to understand. It's biblical because we look back at all the biblical deceptions and people falling for these false deities and doing so instantly. And we never think to go, who were they? Who was deceiving these people who watched the hands of God part the waters? Who was
Yeah.
doing these things? There were powers of darkness at work back then, and they never went away. There is no point in the word where it says, okay, this happened and now they're going to stop doing deceptions. The
Right.
word tells us the opposite. It says the resurrection has happened, all these things have happened. Now there's going to be deceptions. There's going to be grand delusions. There's going to be a son of perdition. There's going to be all these things, and the Most High is going to let it happen. Why? So that the people that love the truth will be saved, and those who don't
Amen.
love the truth, they're not going to be saved. So you really have to love the truth. And so you can believe in the globe and love the truth. I believed in it and loved the truth. I believed in the globe heliocentric model, and I had miracles happen. I had salvation. And so the difference was once I found the truth about biblical creation, it changed me. It changed my faith. It changed the word. It made it a science book. And boy, oh boy, is it a science book. I'm finding that out even with life science. And to change the subject real quick, I'll get back onto biblical cosmology. Speaking of the science, I was a biology teacher when I started coming into this, and I'm still teaching biology classes now from a creation standpoint, and it's really changing the way I see intelligent design. It's powerful, and I was looking into how many chromosomes people have, and how and like reproduction and hybrids and all that stuff. Because people ask, why can't you reproduce with different species and different things, And so a
Hmm.
student had asked me this years ago, and I looked into it, and there was this beast-like creature that had 46 chromosomes. It had horns, and it was like this big bull-looking creature. And I thought, man, that's weird. I never saw that before. But you hear about being grafted in the Bible, and it's talking about an olive tree that you're grafted into. That's the plant that they chose with grafting in to Israel. And Paul's talking about this in the book of Romans. And as I'm looking at how many chromosomes a person has, there's a list of organisms and plants that have 46 chromosomes, and there's only a few. There's not a lot. And there's only one plant, and it was the olive tree that has 46 chromosomes. And when you're
Wow.
grafting something into a plant, it has to be of the same kind and have the same number of chromosomes. And I thought, wow, this Bible, when this was written, we didn't know about chromosomes. We didn't know, about any of those things, but our Father knew, and his prophets were speaking through the Holy Spirit. And so they're telling us things that are powerful in the spirit. And just like that genetics example with the olive tree having 46 chromosomes, there's power to the word, and there's a reason why it's so accurate. They could have picked any other plant, and not one of them would have
Right.
had the 46 chromosomes like us. And so
That
that's a
is
big
amazing.
pre-zygotic barrier
So I did
with
want to bring that
reproduction.
up. So you
Yeah.
were a science teacher. So you're not some ignorant like flat earther or whatever. Your whole life, your whole career was science, still is, but you did it as a career for the public school system. Now you teach. So tell people where they can find out how they can, if they're homeschooled or whatever, how they can get their kids enrolled in your science schools.
Yeah, if you guys, even if you're not into biblical cosmology yet, just be careful. Somebody said in the comments, yeah, I tell people not to look into it unless you're ready to become one. And
Yeah,
so
that's
be
true.
careful, be very careful, because if you start looking into it, things are gonna make sense. And but yeah, I teach life science and earth science classes, and we do so. It's become a worldwide school. We have so many students from all over that are the best students I've ever had. They're the hardest working students. They're putting out the best work I've ever seen. Reading some of the work today and the things that they've done, I mean, I'm just like fired up seeing the things that they are finding and teaching me. And so creation standard was actually something I would not have came up with on my own, but as a science teacher, I had freedom in my own classroom to be not deceitful, but to be very sneaky and teach
I
children the truth without getting in trouble, and doing it in a way that's not
love
just
it.
blatant. You had to be cunning. And so I would do these things, and I could teach my own kids certain things and help them see how false evolution was. However, I got placed in a classroom with other teachers, and it made me see how much we're in a war zone.
Yeah.
And these children are being deceived, told that they don't matter. They came from nothing, and that nothing became an amoeba somehow. And that amoeba became dinosaurs, 100,000 pound creatures that all of a sudden went extinct and then devolved into birds. And now you're just a mutated bird with no feathers. Like there's just so
Yeah.
many weird lies they have to create to keep us all in this trap of not mattering, and not caring about anything, because life doesn't matter. It's random. And so once I saw the damage being done, I was like, got to create something. And I was going to just do it on the side, but I knew that I couldn't do it justice unless I stepped out full time. And so this year, I've been teaching for 16 years in the public school setting, and have been blessed to now my 17th year, first time teaching, and I'm teaching outside of the public school. And I've worked harder than I've ever worked in my life. I have four
Yeah.
different preps: two life science, two earth science, children of all ages 3 to 80. Like, we have it. Like, that's the kind of program I wanted, so people can come in and learn, even if you feel like you got your college degree. And I've had people who are like, hey, I went through college and I didn't learn anything about intelligent
Mm.
design. I want to learn. And so we're investigating things and finding new proof. It's changing my life. It's powerful. So creationstandard.com, that simple. You can go there. You can join us late, or you can wait until next year. I'm going to try to do this again next year if it works out financially. I'm really hoping to. I don't want to give my verbal commitment yet, but that's where my heart's at, is staying with it, doing this again, adding some more actual book resources and all that next year, so we don't just create it as we go. This year we're creating it as we go, and it
That's
is a
awesome.
journey. Registration right there on the homepage. My wife is my secretary. If you don't get a response real soon, I have to fire her. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
blame her.
She's usually pretty prompt. She's had to take on a lot of responsibilities with this, so that I could just do instructions, and she does everything else. Like, that's literally what I focus on, is instruction. So it's been a blessing having a good secretary, an
Amen.
attractive secretary.
You brought up a verse. I wanted to read it while we're looking at this. So it says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not a love of the truth that they might be saved. And it, in the context here, it says, and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So, some people say, look, man, we don't need to look at that. But I don't believe that truth is ever sent to harm. The truth will set you free in all departments. And so you mentioned something about not being deceptive, but having to be smart. And I thought of this verse where it says, behold, I sent you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. That was you in the public school system. And it
Yeah.
says, be therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So I believe that's what you were doing.
Yeah, I had to. and it was quite the journey. I got in trouble 3 times, but it was worth getting in trouble. Not
Went to
for
the principal's
teaching. I got in
office.
trouble. Yeah, I got called to the principal's office 3 times, more than my whole school history when I was a student. I think,
Wow.
yeah, almost. And so, yeah, I got called to the office 3 times, not for my classroom experiences, but for my online presence, talking about this stuff like I am now. So I had to go into hiding, and eventually I just decided to come out of hiding. And so now pretty much everyone in my science department knew I was a biblical earth creationist. And so might as well become a fool. The word tells us, 1 Corinthians 3,
Amen.
18 through 19, become a fool. And we're going to go over that. I want to go ahead and get started, though, because there's a
Yeah,
lot
let's
to
do it.
cover. I do not want to leave any questions unanswered. So if you have
Amen.
questions, think about them, and we will answer them as we go. But real quick, this picture right here, this is a brief history of the heliocentric model coming about. Some of the key figures, and it goes way deeper than secret societies. Mankind could not come up with these lies on their own. They
That's
needed
right.
powers of darkness that have been around since before the flood to teach the wisdom of the fallen to mankind. The same powers of darkness that knew who the Messiah was when he was casting them out into the swine and into the water. Of course, they were probably afraid of water because of the flood, but the powers that shouldn't be. This stuff isn't a very, very old lie. It started coming really big into fruition in about the 1540s, where
Wow.
Pope Paul III approves this Jesuit order. And that Jesuit order, once it's approved, Copernicus comes along 3 years later. I'm thinking he might be associated with that society, but he dedicates a heliocentric treatise to Pope Paul III, the same one that approved that. And then the 1590s, of course, you have secret oaths, secret societies replicating the same oaths as like the Jesuits did. You'll notice with secret societies, they have oaths
Yeah.
that bind them, just like the fallen did on Mount Hermon. They bound themselves to corrupt the world. And these people have secrets, and they're not keeping secrets because they're planning a surprise party and they have our best interest at heart. It'd be good to think that, but usually when somebody has kept secrets for many hundreds of years, it's not to make a huge, 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 really good surprise for you. It'd be nice to dream about that, but they do dark things at the very tippy top. And
Yep.
there's Masons out there that are good people. There's NASA scientists that are out there that are good people.
That's
The
right.
lower levels, they're not, they don't know. I think that's why Hitler, I was reading when we were in DC, like you were, we got stuck there and we were passing through, and I was reading about Hitler in one of the, I'm afraid to talk about too many things, but the lower level peoples of the secret society, he let them kind of come back in, get re-educated, but the people at the top, they were put to death. I think he
Wow.
knew that they knew too much. I really don't know what the whole deal was with that. I'm not saying he's a good guy or anything, but I'm saying
Hmm.
he knew the power structure, and so he was letting the little bottom people free, essentially. And so
Wow.
lots of little powers of darkness at work forming some of these things. It's going to get dark. I will warn you. I'm not going to go into all the history, who they are and why they lie. We've got documentaries on that on our channel that are literally called just that, who they are and why they lie.
Mm.
So you can look that up. But there's some order of events that had to take place to hide the reality of the biblical Earth model. Things like guarding Antarctica are essential, and space travel are essential. And those are two aspects you're going to see world powers agreeing on peacefully. And that's what you have to look out for. When world powers are agreeing on
Mm.
something peacefully, it brings us back to the Tower of Babel, where they all had the same language. They were all peacefully trying to accomplish a task of going up to the firmament. And the Most High says that they are united. They have one language. I'm paraphrasing here. This
Yeah.
isn't his exact words, but they're united. They have one language, and nothing they're set out to do will be impossible for them.
That's right.
And so, how is that not impossible going to the firmament? You know, because
Yeah.
they're united. They are all one language. And so he changed their languages. He sent them all around the world. And that's where you get these new nations with languages and everything. Before that, everybody could speak the same language. There's no need, if you're born speaking a language, to change it. That was something that was changed by the Most High for a reason. And now they are uniting the nations, the United Nations, the international space stations, all
Mm.
these things involve uniting, and you'll notice they do so peacefully. And so
Yeah.
the who they are aspect, it's easy to see just looking at sculptures and history. They worship sun gods, and they
It's
worship
true.
the light bearer, Satan. Just look at Satan over here, 1795, a precursor to the modern day Lady Liberty, liberty from the law being lawless. That's why there's a broken chain on
Yeah.
her ankle. Not that it's really a she. I mean, look at these people. They have the same physique, same bicep right here, probably went to the same gym. And so Lady Liberty, Helios, like all these deities, they're all interrelated, and it goes way back before Christ. You hear about sun god worship in the Bible as being an abomination. So it has been going on. Not going to get deep into that. Just wanted to show you some imagery and let you know that those powers have continued to pass on the torch. Rome essentially never really died out, and those powers are there. You can see their marks. You can see just looking down over the White House. I know, Mikey, you guys talk about these things all the time. And so
Yeah.
your people know these things. I just want to share this verse right here. This is from the book of Jubilees, which is a lot like Genesis, same
Mhm.
account. And it's showing you our Father's mercy because he was talking to Moses and telling Moses what the people were going to do because he knows the future, but his mercy and his grace endures forever. And so he tells them, he's telling Moses, they will make to themselves high places and groves. And they have the
Wow.
groves today and
Yeah.
graven images. And they will worship each his own graven image so as to go astray. And they will sacrifice their children to demons
Mm.
and to all the works of error of their hearts. And I will send witnesses unto them. So instead of just wiping them out, he's going to send them witnesses. He should have just wiped them out. You see people sacrificing children
Yeah.
to demons. You should just wipe them out. But he's extending his mercy,
Mercy.
sending witnesses. But here's what happens it says, that I may witness against them, but they will not hear, and will slay the witnesses also. And they will persecute those who seek the law, and they will abrogate and change everything as to work evil before my eyes. And he's telling Moses this before he gives these people free food from the manna, all these things. Before he does all these things, nourishes them, teaches them his ways. He's telling Moses, this is what they're going to do. And so his mercy is out there. He is reaching out, sending witnesses constantly. They killed his son. All these things have happened, and it's still going on to this day. They are still doing those same foolish things. And
Yeah.
so the who they are aspect, I want to cover this real quick. This is the biblical aspect, and it has to do with what a lot of people hear this word, the Antichrist, they think of a key figure. They think of this person,
Right.
but they were dealing with this type of people back then, the Antichrists.
It's a
That's why,
spirit.
and yeah, it's a spiritual thing. And there can be a certain figure who is more Antichrist, and more against those people, but this spirit was at work back then. They said, even now are there many antichrists.
Yeah.
And then it tells us about, like you said here in John chapter 4, or 1 John 4, verse 3, and every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist. That's why people get so mad. That's why the priests were ripping their clothes when they found out who he was saying he was, saying that he was basically the one that Daniel chapter 7 mentioned, returning at the right hand of the Most High with the clouds of heaven. You have yet to see this. And they're like, wait a minute. He's saying he's the Messiah coming with the clouds of heaven. What's going on? Let's rip our clothes. We're angry. They were
Mm.
mad, even though they saw the miracles. They never denied that he did miracles. They saw them. Still put him to death because of those spiritual powers talking in their ears and working. And so the essential ingredient here, though, 1 John 2:22, a bunch of twos there, easy to remember that one. It
Mm.
says, who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the anointed one or the Christ? He is anti-anointed one or antichrist that denieth the Father and the
The sun.
Son. And so that's a big deal.
Mm.
And when you look at what they're doing, if you can't really deny the Son because everyone's teaching that message, now you got to deny the Father. What
Yeah.
was their desperation? Create a big bang, eliminate the Father, and then the Son has to become a fairy tale. They couldn't hide him, couldn't sweep him under the rug. People were still talking about him, but they tried their best to eliminate the Father in Genesis 1 with a big bang explosion. And remember, you saw the graphics earlier on, Pope Paul III approving the Jesuit order. It was a Jesuit priest who invented the Big Bang.
This is
It was
not
a,
a conspiracy theory. You can literally just Google it, just type in who created the Big Bang Theory. It's public knowledge. Um,
yep,
you were just talking about the spirit of Antichrist working through, the rulers of the world and stuff like that. We talk about that a lot. We've been talking about it with Trump and Elon, and um, it's weird. A lot of people can't believe the concept that Satan is literally the God of this world, working through the governments of this world, and people still put trust in man and governments. And so there's a verse I wanted to show here in Ezekiel. The context is about the destruction of Lucifer. Some people disagree that Lucifer is Satan or whatever, but thou hast defiled the sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquity. I will destroy thee, O covering cherub. But it's addressing a prince, this Prince Tyrus, and it says, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Tyrus wasn't back
Yeah.
in the Garden of Eden. Every precious stone was your covering. You were in the holy mountain of God. You've walked up and down it. You were perfect in your ways from that day that you were created until iniquity was found in thee. This is the fallen angel who is now Satan. But the way it's addressed is it's being addressed to the prince of Tyrus. So I wanted to just use a Bible reference to show that Satan does work through the kings of the world.
Yeah. Constantly working through anyone he can. They're desperate
Yeah.
to get as many to perish as they can. And it's biblical. It's like that spirit of the Antichrist denying the Father and the Son. And so if
Right.
you can eliminate that Father, it reminds me of that movie that everyone's familiar with, Back to the Future, where when the parents didn't come together, there was no father, essentially. The son goes away. And you can see him starting to vanish. And that's how they've done with eliminating the Father, the Messiah, his beloved Son, starts to disappear. And so it's a powerful lie. And to erase that lie, you have to become foolish. And that
Yep.
sounds crazy. It sounds mean, but that's what we're asking people to do. And I always thought that I was so wise and never knew what this meant. But it tells us here, let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool that he may be wise. Sounds counterproductive. But then it goes
Yeah.
on to clarify that the wisdom of this world is foolishness with Yahuwah, for it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness. And so
Amen.
the wise are crafty. They're being really crafty right now with the things they're doing. And you have to lose that worldly wisdom. And when you lose it, people are going to think you're foolish. That is a warning. They will think you're foolish, but you're going to have great peace and you're going to have truth when you
Yep.
do that. And we're going to
Amen.
put the worldly wisdom to the test. That's what we've all had to do. And it's been fun. It's been eye opening. And you
Yeah.
start seeing things. Once you actually start really loving truth and seeking it, you're going to see that the moving world that they put us on is not just moving really, really fast, many, many times faster than a bullet. It has this number that we've read before, the 666, all throughout it.
Wow,
The
dude.
speed, 66,600 miles per hour. That's what I was taught. Now you look it up and they've rounded to 67,000 on almost
Hmm.
every website. But that was the literal speed.
Why
And
did the
then,
speed change, or did they calculate it different, or why
yeah,
would it?
yeah, you have to type in exact. When you start typing in exact, then you start finding it. But when you just type in how fast is the world moving, you'll get 67,000 or approximately this. And so
Mm.
they have to change it to hide it now that everybody's onto it. But even the curvature, they've embedded that number, 0.666 feet per mile squared. That's
Wow.
how much curvature. 8 inches is 0.666 feet per mile squared. And then the tilt, even with that beloved tilt of 23.4 degrees, the one they say is responsible for our season changes and all that. The remainder to get to 90, 66.6 degrees. Of course, you have the Arctic and Antarctic circles at 66.6 degrees. Like that number is intertwined in many, many places.
Yep.
And that's the wisdom of this world. But if you go to our Father's wisdom, what he's actually saying about his creation, he says that the world is immovable. It has a
Mm.
foundation and there's a firmament above it. And on day 4 of creation, this was after he spent the entire day 2 of creation making a structure. And we'll look
Yeah.
at that structure. We'll see proof of it, visual proof of it, documentation of it here in just a little bit. But he placed all the lights above us into that firmament. And so we have this really nice, beautiful clock with lights in it for signs and appointed times that are so accurate. We could predict them hundreds of years, if not thousands of years into the future and into the past because it's that accurate of a clock. Imagine
Amen.
having a watch like that kept working for thousands of years and people could go, oh, I knew what time it said on this day, this many years ago. This is the most accurate timepiece ever created. It's the most beautiful timepiece ever created, and it keeps going. And it's been going and going since he put those 2 lights in the firmament of the heaven. And so they're actually in the firmament. You can't go to them. You can't land on them. And so
Mm.
that's where we understand it's not moving. There's a firmament, but Earth, it's not really flat. And people are going to be really mad when you say that because they're like, wait, I thought you were a flat earther. No, the Earth is just dry land. And so the
Right.
gathering together of the seas and or the waters he called seas, but Earth, it's essentially not flat. It's many different elevations. It's just dry land. You could take Earth and hold it in your hands. You could pick up some dry land, hold it in your hand. You're holding Earth in your hand. That
Right.
is the biblical definition of Earth. And so when you look at a map of the world, the continents, the dry land, that's Earth. And so if they were to say the four
Hmm.
corners of the Earth, and you're going, wait a minute, is it square? I thought he said above the circle. How is it squared and circled? And you get really confused. Just calm down. There's corners on the continents. This continent where they were at, there's corners on it. There's
Oh, wow.
corners of dry land. There's quarters of dry land as well. You can break it up into quarters. Sometimes that word corners is often the word quarters, like you're breaking it up. And so the
That's what I would
four
think too.
quarters of the earth, when he says the four quarters of the earth, you can break it up like a pie chart into four different quarters. Like there's so many different ways, but knowing that dry land is earth will make this make a lot more sense. And so setting above the circle of the dry land makes a lot more sense when you look at a map of reality where there's a circle of dry land that he's above looking down. And so spreading those heavens out like a tent. It tells us this in Isaiah is it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the dry land, the
Mm.
earth, not the world, but the earth, and the inhabitants thereof as grasshoppers. And I remember a lot of people, including myself, would say, see, he knew about the globe before science
Right.
did. And
Yep.
that's what I thought. But then you read this next part that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain. And
Mm.
so spreading them out as a tent. And if you've ever put up a tent, tents do not look like globes. If you try using a
Right.
tent that looks like a globe, it's not going to work. And
Yeah.
so we have a barrier above us, like a tent, like a tabernacle spread out, and it's not moving. The world is immovable. We see that a lot of times, but I want to take a lot of you back to where I got brainwashed and how easy it was. Because I was told that our ancestors were ignorant, they were dumb. We are wise, we've got it figured out. And our
Mm.
dumb ancestors thought you would fall off the edge of the earth. And even Brian Cox, this guy here says, yeah, no, nobody ever believed in the firmament, but they
Wow.
did. Every ancient cosmology believed in it. And I'll show you pictures of that in just a second. And I was then told that Christopher Columbus was this globe warrior who set out to debunk these people who thought you'd fall off the edge, went on these
Mm.
travels in 1492, well before the beloved gravity was invented. And guess when? 1666.
66. Oh my God.
That's
Hey,
when they
can you go
invented
back to
gravity.
that Isaiah scripture again? Yeah, like you said, a lot of people use this to say, look, the Bible, they knew that the earth was a globe and they use it to try and fight, atheists and things like that. And this was written by Isaiah and it uses the word circle. And when you look, the same author, Isaiah, and because some people will say, well, they didn't have the word sphere back then or whatever, but it says, he will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball. So Isaiah, the same person that used the word ball, this is the only word ball in the whole Bible. It just happened to be used by the same author, Isaiah. Why didn't he say earth is a ball? Why do you use
Yeah.
the word circle? So for anyone that's watching and saying, you guys are just, stretching it or whatever. No, Isaiah, if he knew the earth was a globe, he would have used the word ball because he clearly knew that word.
Yeah, and there was lots of comparisons. It's like an apple. It's like he could have used all these other
Right.
images. They had round objects outside of, even if the basketball hadn't been invented, like they had spherical objects around
Yeah.
them, hailstones falling down from the sky. They had lots of spherical objects to look at. And they said he was setting above the circle of dry land, and that circle didn't have an edge you can fall off of. It had a firmament above it. And so I had a deep dive into this, and we'll go into this in just a little bit about this Christopher Columbus guy and what they really believed in, because I was lied to. I was told
Mm.
they believed in that edge, and they were scared of falling off of it. And he went out there knowing he wouldn't because he believed in the globe and wasn't worried about falling off the bottom of a round object. How is that any different? Still like a
Right.
flat disc, only it's a ball now and you're upside down completely. At least a disc, most of it's safe until you get to the edge.
Yeah.
This, everything is an edge. And so 1666, good old gravity being invented by Sir Isaac Newton. And then I was told that circumnavigation fully destroyed the globe, and Christopher Columbus didn't even circumnavigate. It wasn't until later that happened. by a man who historians didn't write about until 300 years after he circumnavigated, a man
Wow.
named Juan Sebastian Elcano. I did not know that until I started doing this class, and I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, not only was I lied to, historians just failed to write about a guy in their own town who did this feat and was, historic, and they waited 300 years. Imagine if we did that with the Messiah. If they were like, well,
Hmm.
they didn't write about him until 300 years later, but they accept this stuff as fact, even though historians are waiting that long. And circumnavigation doesn't even debunk the globe, but it was
No.
hard to do. It took them 3 years to do back then. And so it's not a globe proof. You can point your compass north and go in a circle and go in a straight line, seemingly. If you're pointing your compass north the whole time, you will end up right where you started, no matter where you are on this map.
Right.
Even on a globe, it's very similar.
The center of that map is magnetic north, and if you took a compass and put it anywhere on that map, the needle would be pulling towards that center, that magnetic north center. So essentially, east is clockwise and west is counterclockwise, right?
Yeah, and you have a compass that only works when you hold it flat. It works on a flat surface. When you try
Right.
doing it on a globe with a magnet on the top, it doesn't work. And they say, well, it's like a bar magnet shoved through the middle of the world. And then you look at what the middle of the world looks like, and it's magma. And magnets don't work
Mm.
when you heat them up. They lose their magnetic abilities when they're hot. And we live on what
Wow.
they say is a ball of magma. Can't feel the heat coming through the surface, but it's a ball of magma covered with water. And so the lie that I was told about the edge really gets laughable when you start digging into history. And now, of course, Wikipedia even says, oh no, they didn't believe in the flat earth. They all believed in the globe. And I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was taught this like it was fact. And the reason they're saying that now is because you look back into real historic documents where they're writing about it. This guy here in the 1800s had works translated from into English and looked into what they were believing back then. And they believed in the firmament. He says this right here. St. Paul, also in his epistles to the Hebrews, compares the heavens to a tabernacle or tent spread
Mm.
over the earth. Hence, the casuists maintained, these people back then, that the earth must be flat like the bottom of the tent. They
Wow.
did not mention the edge and falling off of it.
Hmm.
However, this is where it gets funny. The globular people, the globular form of the earth, and the possibility of an opposite and inhabitable hemisphere, but maintained that it would be impossible to arrive there in consequence of the heat of the torrid zone. So they had their imaginations, the globe believers. You had both the biblical earth believing in the firmament aspect, and you had the globe believers. So you had both beliefs going on back then. And it says, as for the steering to the west in search of India, they observed that the circumference of the earth must be so great as to require at least 3 years to the voyage, and those who should undertake it must perish of hunger and thirst from the impossibility of carrying provisions for so long a period. And so Wikipedia also tells you that, oh no, they had the globe math figured out. They inherited it from the Greeks and they all understood everything. Meanwhile, they thought it was so far away you just couldn't get there without traveling for 3 years. And then here's not the least absurd of their objections, that should a ship even succeed in reaching the extremity of India, she could never get back again. Why? Not because of the edge, for the rotundity of the globe would present a kind of a mountain. So a
Wow.
mountain of curved water, of which it would be impossible for her to sail with the most favorable wind. So they weren't afraid of the edge,
Hmm.
they were afraid of curvature. I was never
Wow.
taught that. I was told they were dumb, they were barbaric, they believed in an edge, and Christopher Columbus proved them wrong when he went on this journey. And his journey
Which
didn't even circumnavigate. He
that
didn't prove it was a
concept
globe.
is an evolution. That's a Darwinian evolution mindset that we think people in the past were dumb, they were ignorant, they worshiped, we like, oh, they worship stone, blah, blah. We worship Taylor Swift. They were
Yeah.
no dumber than us now. They were way smarter. Adam and Eve were perfect. You think about their offspring, Cain and Abel, and then Noah. You think those people were dumb? No, man. The Bible says that we're going to be as in the days of Noah in the last
Yeah.
days. So that
Oh
makes me
yeah.
question. I wonder if there was maybe there was some crazy technology back then. Who knows? But I
Yeah,
know
I
they
mean,
were
we're
smart
still
people.
marveling at their inventions, the inventions of the Egyptians, the Babylonians. How are they doing this? How did they do it? How did they
Mm,
have help making these structures we don't understand? Well, because a lot of these structures were pre-flood structures. The flood was a great reset. They had the wisdom
yeah.
of the fallen. They carved it into stone. That's how it was able to survive the flood and be passed on to current generations. They learned these things that were carved in stone. And so that's why probably one of the reasons why they call Masons, it has to do with the
Yeah.
stonework that they found after the flood, the sons of Noah and their children. They found these things, and it says in the book of Jubilees, they sinned on account of it. And so that wisdom of the fallen returned. They learned a lot of powers of darkness. They were being plagued by demons, and it tells us that they were really being plagued by demons after the flood, but the Father bound a large percentage. So what we're dealing with now is nowhere near what it was.
Sorry, I'm laughing, dude. I'm looking at your pear-shaped
Uh,
NASA. You got to explain it because
yeah,
we've been looking at this topic for a long time, and there's a lot of memes in the biblical cosmology thing. But when Neil deGrasse Tyson was questioned about the shape of the Earth, he goes, "It's actually pear-shaped." Is it?
yeah,
When you're like spinning pizza dough and it gets flat and wide. It's funny you
yeah.
mentioned flat because it kind of
Chubby.
flattens out. It gets a little chubby. He said that's a good word for it. It gets a little chubby in the middle, around the middle. So the Earth is actually, it's not round. It's not a ball. It's actually pear shaped.
He insulted the world, called it chubby, and then said it was pear
Sure.
shaped. I'm sure the world didn't like that very much. And the mountain of pear shaped curved is higher
Oblate
than Mount Everest.
spheroid.
Yeah, oblate. It's oblate. It's sort of
Oblique
oblate.
spheroid.
Yeah, and so it's an oblate spheroid, he says, and that just means that there's a mountain of curved water higher than Mount Everest at the equator. And so
Wow,
when you're
dude.
going around the equator, you're far enough above sea level, you're higher than Mount Everest. I don't know why that water's not frozen, but that's how high you would be. I mean, it is a large mountain of curvature, and this is just a snapshot of all the past civilizations, what they believed in. And you see
Wow.
a firmament. You don't ever usually see a disk that you fall off of. There's usually some sort of covering, and that's because all that information originated with the Genesis truth, with that biblical proof or truth of creation. They all knew it, they all understood it. You can tell the world's not moving. If somebody told you it was,
Yeah.
you'd be thinking, how? It must be moving really, really slow at a snail pace because I don't feel it. And it
Right.
must be moving in a straight line because if you're ever going around a curve, you notice there's a curve you're going around in a car or on a roller coaster. But the world is moving in a curved path, spinning, curved around, path around the sun, flying through the galaxy. Like we're going to get into those speeds, but the
Um,
circumnavigation aspect, I wanted to share this. What's that?
do you happen to know when the first illustration of a globe came about? Because you're looking at these old etchings or these old drawings. They're all a flat with a firmament on top. When did we first see a globe drawing?
It happened. It was a sun god worship concept that came about, and people like Eratosthenes, you'll hear them mentioned quite often. He was living in a town that had a sanctuary of Apollo. Remember the Apollo missions? Apollo is a sun
Right.
god. They
Yeah.
named their mission a sun god mission, where they were going allegedly through the firmament to get to the moon because they knew it was there. They know they can't go to the moon, and so the sun god missions. This guy lived in a sun god town. They had a temple of Zeus,
Wow.
and Eratosthenes was a Zeus worshiper. He had dedicated a scepter to Zeus, and he was using obelisks, sun god phallic symbol objects of worship, to measure the so called curvature. And these are sun god deities he was doing this for. He wasn't doing this for science. And the
Mm.
math, even Neil deGrasse Tyson, who we were just talking about, says you can do the same thing with a local light source and a flat surface
Right.
that you can with the curved surface in the obelisk. You can do it both. It works both ways perfectly. And so now when you look it up, they'll say, "Oh, he used sticks and shadows." They don't want you knowing he was a sun god worshiper. It wasn't sticks and
Mm.
shadows. Neil deGrasse Tyson says it was wells and shadows. And I'm like, why are there so many stories? And you look into it because he was in the mega center of sun god worship, this guy, and he was devout. It is a religion. He was a
Yeah.
religious guy, but he worshiped Zeus. And so Eratosthenes, when people quote him like he's some scientist, mathematician, he was not. He was a religious
Mm.
guy. He knew math, but the writings about him and his experiments, guess what? They're nowhere to be found. We're
Wow,
we're
man.
we're dealing with this is what somebody said about him. There's no original documentation. It's not like the Bible where there's manuscript after manuscript. And so this guy pretty much coming on the scene more so in recent times, and they just act like, oh, back then everybody knew about his math. How? This was before
Mm.
the internet. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
how did everybody just know his math? They were like, oh, guys, Eratosthenes figured it out. This sun god worshiper over here. Let's all adopt his math. And yeah, now we got it figured out. No, meanwhile, they were too dumb. They in the 1400s. Yeah, right. It's like
Mm.
the stories aren't adding up.
That's
And then when
right.
we finally did start circumnavigating and collecting data, it didn't match the globe. Antarctica as a continent should be 11,000 miles in circumference, But when they were going around, Captain Cook in the 1770s, that's close to when we were having some big things happening with America.
Right.
He went 62,000 nautical miles, and this is his log. He said no continent was to be found. Basically, all you could see is ice, and he was trying to go around. It took him 3 years. And then the HMS British Challenger, 78,000 miles, going around in the 1870s, getting closer to recent times, matching the circumference of the biblical Earth model. And so if Antarctica was as big as their travels, that's how big it would look compared to the globe. I wanted you to see a visual. But the reason it looks
What?
that way is because you can unwrap that and wrap it around the real world. It makes more sense.
Whoa. No
It's
way,
really,
dude.
really cool.
This is my
So,
first time ever seeing that
yeah,
illustration right there.
well, I'm learning this stuff brand new because I'm having to go back and look at the stuff that I was indoctrinated to believe, and I'm just finding out that there's logs. This was a scientific journey. The HMS British Challenger, it was scientific. They were trying to find new species and exploring, and of course, they were going and docking in certain places. They weren't staying right near the ice wall. But if they're going 78,000 miles around an 11,000-mile continent, they are horrible explorers.
Yeah.
And these people were funded by the British, like they were doing this
Oh
stuff
man.
for science.
They
And
need a
so it's
refund.
yeah, and so their data's out there. I looked it up, and I was not surprised when I found out that people were writing about it and saying, "Look, guys, this globe Earth stuff is a lie. Look at their data." And I go back and I look at their data, and it's still published in like museums. They still have those logs, and they still use them. And they charted a lot of new species and things in the ocean. And so there's a lot of things we don't know that they're just kind of tucking away. But you can listen to Copernicus himself, and I'm going to read his quote after I read First Timothy, and you'll see he's familiar with the Bible. He actually went to college specializing in biblical canon, probably trying to have certain books removed is what his goal might have been. Don't want to
Wow.
say that's true, but imagine that. And so in this book, it tells us in First Timothy, I'm going to skip to the last highlighted part. It says, avoid profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called.
Yeah.
And so telling people to avoid the false science. Here's what Mr. Copernicus, Mr. Helios worshiper, he says, there may be babblers, using that word babbling, remember, avoid the
Mm.
babblings, wholly ignorant of of mathematics, who dare to condemn my hypothesis upon the authority of some part of the Bible.
Wow.
Twisted to suit their purpose, I value them not, and scorn their unfounded judgment. So essentially, people quoting the Bible as proof of the biblical earth, I don't value their opinion. I
Yeah.
scorn their unfounded judgment. You can hear his anti Bible tone. He does not like people quoting the Bible to go against his math. And does his math put him above the Most High? Absolutely not.
And
He
look
didn't
where
even
we're
know
at.
where the sun was and all that stuff back then. He was just saying it's a sun centered model.
Yeah. And look where
And
we're
then
at
he,
today. Back then, he was a heathen that was angry at Christians using the Bible. But now, today, if someone like us uses the Bible, even the Christians get mad.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Total
quoting the Bible, they're like,
brainwash.
no, 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 you're just misunderstanding. That wasn't literal. But when I talked about the powers of darkness, there was more. They always called themselves we are legion. Listen to his language.
Mm.
Finally, he's not speaking alone. We
Yeah.
shall place the sun himself at the center of the universe.
What? Finally, we shall
That's Mr.
place the sun
Copernicus.
himself. So the
We
sun is a
shall.
he, is a
It's
deity.
a he. It's a he, and he named it after his sun god Helios. Helio is short for the sun god Helios, and centric means centered around. It's not centered
Wow.
around the sun, it's centered around a sun god,
The
the
god
ancient sun
Helios.
god that was there for them to worship. They had graven images of this statue. You've seen pictures of them at the start of this presentation, and I showed
Mm.
them to you so you can see how they went through time, not just after Christ, but before and beyond to this day. Even that beloved word solar system, we were making solar systems when I was in school. I didn't know that Sol was their sun god of Rome, Sol
Wow,
Invictus.
dude.
Sol Invictus was their sun god. And AR, what does that mean? It's a suffix that means belonging to. So you've got centered around a sun god and belonging to a sun god.
A
Both
system of
named
belonging to
demonic.
soul.
Yeah, it's dark. And so it is a religion. When people say, don't force your religion on me with this stuff, they already forced it on us. We were
Right.
already told, hey, here's a sun god model. You're forced into believing it. It's going to be in your standards. You have to teach it. And it only took a couple generations to hide the firmament because all they had to do is say, oh, they believed in an edge. And people like me, young, innocent, going, oh, they believed in an edge. Oh, but then we found out it was round. Oh, circumnavigation. Wow.
Mm.
Not once did I have a mental image in my head of a barrier up above us. No one ever told me that in church. No one ever said it in
Oh.
school. If I had heard that as an option, my mind might have said, let me look into that. But it was like, oh, disk in space versus globe in space. That was your two options. And
Yeah.
I didn't know they were sun god centered models. And I didn't know that Mr. Copernicus was a sun god worshiper. So was Eratosthenes. And so was the person who invented the Big Bang. He is a
Mm.
Jesuit. And so there's a quick glimpse again to remind you, going all the way back to 400 BC. There's a Helios carving. Look at the crown. Look at the crown, 100 BC. Roman sun god Sol Invictus. Look at the crown.
Mm.
Helios. Look at the crown. Look at the 1400 AD up there with Mr. Relativity. Looks like they're relatives right there.
Right.
Looks just like them. And then the old Colossus, it was a statue. They call the Statue of Liberty the new Colossus. That's actually engraved in there, the new Colossus. The
Wow.
original Colossus was the Statue of Rhodes, and it was a statue of Helios. And it was the 33 meters in height, just like the Lady Liberty,
Mm.
from feet to crown. And so you have that sun god stuff going on. And as you get to the 1700s, then you start seeing the Satan statue come in, or painting, not statue, Satan painting. So this is called Satan summoning his legions. And then the Statue of Liberty looks just like that.
Yep.
Copy,
Identical.
paste. And then 1889, of course, they just made it more blatant. There's an actual male version, and they call him Helios. And so this stuff it never died out. And then when we started having space travel, what was their first mission? Did they name it after the Messiah? Did they name it after the
Mm.
disciples? They named it after Mercury.
Wow, dude.
Mercury, to guide the souls of the underworld. And look at the symbol at the bottom left.
Yep.
Do you guys see the upside down cross there, or am I
Oh yeah.
hallucinating? And then
No,
their next one,
there's wow.
yeah, it's dark. They named the next one after Atlas. There's 1962, Atlas. And guess who Atlas is? He's the god holding up the firmament.
Right?
That was his punishment. And when you look at Enoch, the angels that were bound, they were bound deep under the earth. And like, oh, look, he was just bound. He was just holding up the firmament, that guy, one of their deities. And then, of course, Apollo, the sun god, with their Apollo missions, where they finally got their first images of the world to fully indoctrinate us on their sun god missions. And now the new modern day ones, guess who they're named after? The
Mm.
sister of Apollo, Artemis, the twin sister, the moon goddess. And now she's going to take us to the moon, not our father, not, hey, let's pray for safety so these people don't die in a vacuum chamber. No, let's just name them after sun gods and
Wow, dude.
use these dark origins. And these lies, like lies of evolution, depend on the lies of the sun god model. And that's why you can see their books. They had the same authors. I mean, I feel like they just wrote these in modern day. Like Eratosthenes over here, the Zeus worshiper, on the measurements of the earth. Then you have the sun god worshiper of Copernicus coming in 1533 on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres. And then Darwin on the origins of the species. Like they couldn't differentiate their titles. They wanted them to
Whoa.
sound the same and look the same because they come from the same dark powers, separated by generations, but not separated by the powers of darkness. They have those unification things going on. And these people are often given titles. Copernicus, father of the heliocentric model.
Father.
Darwin, father of evolution. George Lemaitre, or Lemaitre, however you say his
Mm.
name, father of the Big Bang. We got our founding fathers, and then
Founding
we have our
father.
Messiah who says, call no man on earth your father,
Wow, dude.
because you have one father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to let yourselves be called leaders, because you have one leader, and he is the Messiah. The greatest among you must be servant. For whoever promotes himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be promoted. And he lived out that example of being humble. He was a
Mm.
servant, and he washed the feet of his servants. I mean, like all these things he did, showing us how to be humble, how to live, and telling us to call no man father. And that's what we do. We call people father. And when you're reading a science book, every chapter, oh, here's the father of genetics. Here's the father
Yeah.
of this. Here's the father that has these laws of physics. Here's the father that has these. Everybody's father. You go to church, Rome wants you to call the person in their father. Oh, Holy Father, Pope, Holy Father. Like we're giving these prestigious titles to men, and they're not living up to the examples of the Messiah, and they're wanting to be called Father. They're wanting these big titles, and so it's dark. There is a bias, and I told you I got called into the
Yeah.
principal's office, and I was told, as long as you don't have bias, you're okay. Don't have any bias. Well, I go to the words of the people who brought up the ideas that the world is old, older than the creation narrative. And it's a man named Charles Lyell. He's the one that is the founding father of geology. And what was his goal? His goal was to free the science from Moses. That was his
Oh
goal.
my
Why is
goodness.
that a big deal? Because Moses has the creation account written down. So
Right.
you're
He wrote
freeing the
Genesis.
science. Yeah, freeing the science from the understanding of Genesis and the Exodus, who we are, where we come from, how old the world is. And so his idea of this world being millions of years old, where did it come from? His thought or assumption, Earth appeared aged. That is the science. It
Like it
appeared
looks
aged.
old.
It looks old. Yep,
Look how
it's old.
dusty it is.
It's got rankles.
Wow.
It's old. So he said it appeared aged, and that was it. That's where that idea of millions of years started to come from. And they had to invent the geological column and all these things. But we're going to put George or Charles Lyell to the test, the
Mm.
father of modern geology. And so him trying to get rid of Moses, well, guess what? Moses, he didn't just do all these things by himself. He had the Most High with him. And the Most
Amen.
High, this is where I'm going to hopefully open a lot of your eyes to how real this Bible is that they're trying to
Amen.
hide from us. There was a pillar of fire. I've highlighted it in blue here. And it says here that Yahuwah looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire
Mm.
and of the cloud. So there was that pillar of fire and the cloud aspect. But he's troubling the host of the Egyptians. And I remember seeing that Ten Commandments movie as a child, and that was the first time I saw those types of special effects with a fire touching down, and it just was something that stood out in my mind as just being impressive. Like, wow, that is so cool. Because I was real
Hmm.
big into superheroes back then. It was
Yeah.
pretty much idol worship. I'm not going to lie. I was a huge Superman fan. And when I saw that, wow, my creator can do this, he's like a superhero, instead of they're borrowing things from his powers and trying to make man be like gods. I kind of was like, wow, he's got these powers. And so I related to the Most High that way back then, like that.
Mm.
However, I didn't realize that pillar of fire, not only was it mentioned in this book, not only did it help them get across by keeping the Egyptians back while the waters were parted, this pillar of fire that we read about, there's proof of this pillar of fire. There's proof of those
That's
chariot
right.
wheels. They're still on the bottom. They're coral encrusted. They're gold plated, things that don't break away with time. They're still down
Mm.
there. But the pillar of fire melted the shoreline of that beach where you find out where this happened. You go there, the shoreline has melted soil with rocks infused into it,
Oh
stones.
wow.
You could almost see footprints right here. Look at that, a puddle, a glass
What?
puddle here. You melt soil, it's going to make glass, or you melt sand, it makes glass. When you've got a mix of
Right.
sand and soil, it makes this. This looks like a mud puddle with a rock sticking out of it, but it's melted soil, stones infused. And these guys that went down there chipped away at it, and you can see the stones melted together. Like it is a solid structure there. And it's why
That's crazy.
science needs to get rid of that bias, the bias of getting rid of Moses. We need to bring Moses back into the science. The book that they try to ban in all these places has proof that it's real. So much
Amen.
proof. And Moses is just one of those. The footage is in this presentation, but
This is more
um,
evidence,
I'll
that
show you real quick. I didn't
confirms
know it
the
actually played like
location.
that. I forgot. We can share it this way, but here's a look at it from the beach. So you can see melted soil. The only time you see stuff like this is when you go where a volcano erupted. There's no volcanic activity. Look at the stones here.
Mm.
Water's going down. I feel like you could just see footprints there. And this guy is standing on it right here. It looks like regular pebbles. That stuff is infused
What?
together. He even takes a little pick hammer and chips away at it. I don't know if this video is copyrighted, so I try not to show too much more. But
Wow,
forbidden
bro.
footage of actual location of the Red Sea crossing. It's a long video, about 20 or so minutes into the video is where they've come to this point. But you can see them taking their journey there. And even the people that live there are like, oh, we didn't even know about that. Imagine if this was a fake missing link. Everybody would know about it.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's proof of the Bible, and so you don't hear about it
Yeah.
ever. I never heard about this. You find it from some YouTube video, and people are like, quit getting your science from YouTube. We're
Right.
finding stuff. They're hiding from us on YouTube for a
You're
reason. It's
supposed
not
to
in our
get your
science book.
information from the controlled media propaganda source.
Yeah,
Why are you
I
trying to
know.
think outside the box, bro?
Yeah, if the media was lying, it'd be all over the news.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah. So it's powerful stuff, and it brings us back to the Bible now that we know that Moses can be brought back into science. He told us earth was dry land, but now he talks about a firmament. And he didn't even give earth a name until after the firmament was made. Firmament's
Wow.
made on day 3 or on day 2. He didn't name Earth until day 3. And so that firmament
Wow.
was a barrier that was able to divide the waters. And what did he call the firmament? He called it heaven. So if you wonder why you don't hear about the firmament much later on, except for like in several places, Daniel and a couple other prophets, the reason why is because he called the firmament heaven.
Heaven.
And so you can type in the word heaven. It's in the Bible like almost 700 times. And the Messiah uses that word more than anybody. You can type in heaven in Bible Gateway. He's first place about 75 times. Next to
Wow.
him is the prophet David, King David. He was 73, but he used the word firmament twice, which if you add the two firmament words up, it equals 75. So they're actually tied if you do it that way. But that firmament is important. And they talk about it parting like a scroll and all these different things that are going to happen really soon. But the dry land earth, sorry, some of this is repetitive, but we're getting somewhere. We're going to get to the
So
firmament.
yeah, I was gonna say, are you gonna get into breaking it down, the Genesis account of creation, like what that actually looks like step by step?
Yeah, I want to
Okay,
try to
cool.
look more of like the proof we have of it, but how it was hidden, why they would hide it, and a prophecy that talks about planets. I know people have questions about planets, and that's a really big one for me. I grew up
Okay.
loving the planets and singing the names of those planets. And one of the prophecies in the book of Enoch talks about them. This is chapter 80. And it's something that really makes sense when you hear about it. And it came true. You can judge a prophet by his prophecy. And right here, he's telling them many
Hmm.
chiefs of the stars, the brightest, the planets, what we call planets, are the brightest of the stars.
Right.
He says, many chiefs of the stars shall, this is in the future, they haven't done it yet, transgress the order prescribed. Basically, the way they were told to go, they were all given a path to work with that perfectly functioning clock at creation that you can
That's why
look
they're
up at
called
every night and
wandering
see.
stars.
Yeah, wandering stars. And it says, all these shall alter their orbits and tasks. You hear that language? These shall
Hmm.
alter their orbits and tasks and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them. And we're taught about their orbits as if it's this thing that's helped us figure out the world. But they shall alter those orbits, and the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on earth shall err concerning them, and they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods, and evil shall be multiplied upon them. Guess
Wow.
what? All the planets are named after gods.
Hmm.
Every single one except for Earth, because Earth is just dry land. They didn't
Yeah.
rename it. But all those wandering stars named after Roman deities. Mercury is a Roman god of speed. Venus, the Roman
Wow.
goddess of love. Mars, the Roman god of war. Jupiter, the Roman god of that they considered king of the gods. Jupiter, the biggest one, the biggest chief star, the god of the sky and thunder, the protector of Rome. They weren't going to the Most High for protection; they were going to him. And
Wow.
then Saturn, the father of Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto. And then you have Uranus. There's a lot of jokes people make there with this deity because of his name.
Yeah.
And I found out the other pronunciation for Uranus. Listen to this. This is kind of comical. Our anus.
All right. What in the world? I heard
Yes.
Uranus, which that's not much better.
Uranus.
Uranus.
Uranus. Yeah. Two different pronunciations. Both are bad. But he personified the firmament, this goddess. So he's the
Wow.
expanse above. Now they're naming the planet after him, making a graven image. You remember Enoch said they'll be taken to be gods? That's what they've done. They assigned a star to each of these statues, each of their deities. Neptune
Wow.
was the Roman god of water. Pluto is actually the last name of Hades. Hades Pluto, the Roman god of the underworld,
Hmm.
aka just Hades. And so you have all these deities, and as children, we're singing these songs. And the Father told us, don't even utter their names out of your
Right.
mouth. And we're over there, woohoo, let's sing about them. We're learning, we're getting wise. We're becoming worldly wise people here. We're going to
Yeah.
go home and show our parents, not only did I learn the ABCs, check this out. I know what order we are from the sun that, wait, guess what? It's not a sun, it's a star, and we're
Yeah.
going around it. We're modifying the Father's truth, and that truth about those chiefs of the stars that were in the firmament, the only structure he made on day 2 of creation. And this structure, when you look at the Hebrew word, it literally means to stamp out, to beat out, to spread out. Like, it is not air. If it was air and he
Right.
set these stars, the sun, the moon inside of air, that right there defies the current model of the globe, because you would be flying planes through stars. Our
Yes.
atmosphere, they say, only goes up to the Kármán line, 62 miles, and above that is just this vacuum of space.
So
And
you
I'm learning
said,
so much about air pressure. It's amazing because you need this barrier to have air pressure. You can't blow up a tire if there's a hole in it. We have
right.
14.7 psi air pressure at sea level. Like, we have air pressure. We have a barrier.
So you talking about going through this, and that's what I wanted to do too, because a lot of people, I don't know how they get the heliocentric globe from this, but it says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form. So no form. To me, that's not a ball of water, that's form. No
Hmm.
form would be like the ocean or something, right? It's just the water just goes wherever it goes. Without form and void, meaning it's empty, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw the light that was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, called the darkness light, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Here's where it gets interesting. And God said, let there be a firmament. That word, which we don't know what it means right now, the firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. What waters from the waters? I don't know. And God made the firmament to divide the waters which were under the firmament. So if a firmament is like a glass dome, if there is nothing but water without form and void, then you put a dome inside that water, there's air in there at this point. It's like when you take a glass bowl and you slide it into a filled bathtub, you can trap air under there. And it says that there's waters which are under the firmament, as if there was a little bit of water still in the bottom of that bowl, and the waters which were above the firmament. Now, that's a question I want to ask anyone who believes the model that we're taught. What are the waters above the firmament? I've heard some people say, no, the firmament, that's clouds. That's the ozone layer. That's the atmosphere. Okay, so maybe there's moisture above, maybe there's moisture in the clouds, moisture above the ozone layer. Let's go with that. And God called the firmament heaven. Sometimes we call the sky heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered. So he's bringing about the oceans and everything. And then he's going to bring up dry land. But then it says, and God said, let there be lights where? In the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and for years. And which lights are these? And let them be lights in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. This one verse, Genesis chapter 1 verse 17, destroys the whole heliocentric globe model that we've been taught. If you believe that the firmament is the sky or the clouds or the ozone layer or atmosphere or any of that stuff, how can the sun, the moon, and the stars be in the firmament? It can't work. We're told that there's an ever expanding vacuum out there, and that the moon is close and the sun is 93 million miles away, and the stars are way bigger and way further than that in this ever expanding vacuum of space. But we're told there's water above the firmament and that the sun, moon, and stars are in that firmament. How does this work?
Yeah, they're there. Firmament's still there. A lot of people say it went away with the flood, and we had this barrier around the entire globe, which then we would have been in a submarine. We'd have been a submarine globe with water around it. Going around a sun would also have to be somewhat
Well,
underwater.
except that there is mention of the firmament after the flood. I mean, it's
Yeah,
in Proverbs or Psalm where it says
many.
the
Yeah,
firmament declares his handiwork, right? So why
yeah,
would you be mentioning the firmament declares his handiwork if it's gone? We
yeah.
can't look to it and say, "Oh, yep, that God made it."
Yeah, I had my students look up some verses that indicate that it's still here, and they're finding some powerful stuff. And I'm like, wow, I
That's
never thought about
amazing.
that one. I mean, it's interesting stuff because it's still there. And you type in the word scroll in Bible Gateway, you go there, type in scroll, pulls up two verses, one in Isaiah, one in Revelation, talking about the
Hmm.
heavens parting like a scroll when the return happens. So yeah, still
Right.
there. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to part the heavens like
That's
a
a
scroll.
very good point. Wow.
So powerful, powerful. I mean, really cool stuff. And I think you guys need to see the firmament because I had to see it myself. I was one of those people.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I believe it. The Holy Spirit's telling me it's there, but I want to actually see it. I want to reach out and see it and travel to it. I want
Amen.
to do all these things. And the book of Job tells us that it's spread out. He spread out the sky, which is strong as a molten looking glass. Molten looking glasses magnify. It takes a
Mm.
curved lens to magnify. I have one right here. This is a looking glass. Okay.
Wow.
You can use this. I use it as one. It actually came out of an old television, but this thing is solid. Do not drop this on your toes. It's glass, it's curved. You can start a fire in about, I don't know, 3 seconds with this thing. It
Wow.
magnifies really, really well. I mean, like really, really well. See if I can
I'm
magnify
so
my.
glad you showed me that because all this time I thought a looking glass was a mirror. So
Yeah. Strong molten looking glass. Glass is melted sand, just like you saw our father do at the shoreline. So molten looking glass, that's the type of thing you would use to read something back then. If you didn't have glasses, you're getting older, you would get yourself a curved lens. That's how they make microscope lenses. And the ancients weren't dumb. They knew how to magnify things
yeah.
with a curved lens. And so they had looking glasses, and that would have been probably um, a really good thing to have. Like people losing their vision at an older age, that's what you would need, a looking glass. So they had them, and they probably used them for telescopes and things too. They were always studying the stars. But about that book of Enoch, I know I do want to let people know. I know we all have different beliefs on that book. I know
Mm.
Mikey is a little skeptical and cautious of that book. I was very, very skeptical of this book, and I was listening to it just trying to find clues about biblical stuff. And one night I'm laying there listening to it, and I hear him talk about a phenomenon that he says he saw because the angels are taking him on this tour of this biblical cosmology world, and he's talking about the firmament, the lights inside it, how they change gates to change seasons, and all these things going on. And one thing he says about this phenomenon, he says, I saw in regard to the lightnings how some of the stars, not all of them, some of them arise and become lightnings and cannot part with their new form. And I thought, now that just sounds science fiction. But then I remembered a phenomenon known as lightning sprites. These
Mm.
things that shoot down many miles above the clouds. The clouds peak out at about 14 miles. These things are 70 plus miles away. They say 60 and above. I don't know the exact height, and I don't think neither do they. They're making assumptions based on this being the ionosphere that they're coming from. But I have proof that it's not the ionosphere. It's not curved air. These things are massive. And I've used a little scale here. This is from a photographer who
Yeah,
takes
there's like
pictures
no
of these things.
clouds there.
Yeah, the clouds would be way down here, and you're
Wow.
looking up above at this barrier and something shooting down from it. And he's giving you his estimate. This is not my estimate. This is his estimate based on how high he thinks this is. And I put a little rock up here, Mount Everest, just to give you a scale to
Wow.
how big Mount Everest would be next to these things. Mega huge, powerful, branching down. They look like roots of trees coming down, and they're called lightning sprites. And the word sprite means disembodied spirit. So
Right.
whoever gave it that name, I don't know who that was.
Hmm.
But this is again a worldly estimate of these things. They are real. They are rare to catch because they're so fast. You have to have special cameras just to catch them,
This is
and me
amazing.
trying to do it. But look at these things shooting down out of the firmament. You can see they do they not look like they're right up there with the stars?
Dude,
They
this is
look like
crazy
they're right up there
because
with them.
the video I seen that you show from Nova, I couldn't
Yeah,
tell if it was coming out of clouds or what. This is you're looking at the stars, there's no clouds. You
no
can't
clouds,
see
none.
stars when it's cloudy. So what are these things? What is this coming out of?
Yeah, they're above this little tiny little rain cloud here. They're way above that.
Yeah.
And it's an electric phenomenon. We have electric aspects to our own creation. Our heartbeat is electric. That's why you need electricity to get it restarted. Once it
Wow.
messes up and scrambles that electric signal, you have to have those defibrillators and shock you. You are electric. You can look at nerve cells trying to make a connection. Compare that to fractal wood burning. Look at the difference. It's almost identical. But the
Whoa.
footage that I came across here, you're looking at the top of the clouds on the bottom. At the very tip top here, when these lightning sprites happen, you can see something light up. There was a
Yeah.
barrier up above. And this barrier, I thought, man, it looked like something lit up above this lightning sprite. Let me look at the footage. And so I pulled up the footage, and you would see a ripple because they went up above a storm in an airplane. Very brave. This is Nova for PBS. They were a science network. And when they filmed it with these high speed cameras, you could see a wave move across this barrier, and then it looked like fireworks of lightning shooting out of water. I mean, straight down. And I've got some footage here.
That's what I
You
was
can see a
thinking.
lightning sprite compared to a plasma ball. They almost are the same color sometime. Those plasma ball, Labine plasma ball lamps we used to have back in the day. I finally purchased one so I could use it for demonstration purposes. But that's what lightning sprites look like. And when you try to replicate them in a lab, you need a glass barrier, a strong, solid barrier
Yeah.
with a magnetic center. And
I was
here's a
thinking of that,
screenshot.
and also like what do they call it? The aurora.
Hmm.
What is it? Like?
You
Does
need a
anybody really
barrier
know
to
what
do
that
that.
is?
The aurora lights, you need a barrier to do that as well
It's
when you're
like
trying to replicate
gases
it.
that are being illuminated like a halogen bulb, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of neon gases up above us, and those electromagnetic properties of the firmament are detectable, and they're visible. And those stars. Here's a screenshot I took of the video where you could see these sprites shooting out, and there's a barrier above them. And so we have a
That's
firmament
crazy, dude.
playlist where you can see this footage and breakdowns of it where it goes really slow. I slow it down. I adjusted the brightness, and it was listening to the Book of Enoch that had me investigate this, and the footage was going viral. Then my video got taken down, and they said, it was because of Nova and the copyright issues. And I was like, well, let me remake it. And all of a sudden, years later, the video that was banned on YouTube comes back on my channel. They let my video come back, and I
Amazing.
thought, how am I getting comments? Nova took down their footage. Nova, that they risked their lives to film going up above a storm in a plane. They took down their original footage. And so to find the firmament footage, you'll have to look at videos that we've made and others have made of it from Nova, but their original historic footage of these sprites is gone, scrubbed from the internet.
Can you
And so,
imagine if you risked your life to capture that footage, give it to PBS or whatever, and they
yeah,
delete it? I mean, it makes
yeah,
no sense. Why is this stuff being wiped away is what I want to know. Like, we know Google, YouTube, Facebook, they're all connected and everything's so censored now, the fact checkers and all this. When I first like started waking up in the end of 2011, man, you could find anything. You could look up on YouTube, you could look up all these conspiracy theories and there's tons of videos about it. Now, if I get on YouTube and I type Rob Skiba, how do sunsets work? I didn't say nothing about shape of the earth in any kind of way. All I get is all these debunk videos about the earth's not flat, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm looking up how sunsets work by Rob Skiba. That's very descriptive. And yet all I'm getting is, Vsauce of how the earth is a globe or something. Why
yeah,
are
the
they
same
changing the
like 12
algorithm? Why,
videos.
why are they hiding and censoring this topic? Why don't, this should be a red flag for any skeptic of this topic.
Yeah.
Why is it so hard just to look at the evidence? They should be saying, the powers that be should be saying, this is such a dumb topic. Let them look at it.
Yeah, you'll find out it's not true. No, we
Yeah,
can't trust you to find out that it's not true because we know you'll find out that it is true unless
that's
we
right.
alter what you're going to see. And how is
Can you
it
explain
dangerous?
this picture a little bit? What are we
Yeah,
seeing?
this is from the plane. This is the footage from Nova. They were up above the storm, pointing their cameras upward, and they were confused why they kept seeing this barrier and waves move across it. And so I flipped upside down a picture of a geyser because when you watch them play,
Oh,
when I
okay.
play the video on our channel, you can see this shooting out of it looks like water's below the firmament, almost like there's some sort of
Right.
fluid barrier property below it. And I
It
think
looks
I don't
identical.
know, but you'll notice when they were filming it, stars would twinkle right before this happened. And that's how I started going, wait a minute. Enoch says they rise up and make lightning. And one translation says, but they do not lose their form. Essentially, they remain where they are. They're not falling stars or anything. They're basically
Hmm.
rising up. And if you ever touch the top of a plasma lamp, it makes that spark with your finger. As soon as you put
Yeah.
your hand on it, it makes that lightning spark. And these sprites are responsible for that lightning that's so powerful it just obliterates trees. So it's a
Wow.
special kind of lightning that it makes when it actually touches the ground. And they say it's responsible for doing a lot of damage. And that's why sometimes you'll see somebody get struck by lightning or a tree hit, nothing really happens. And then sometimes it's like blown to smithereens, it catches on fire. So it's kind of that plasma ball aspect where you can touch it and make that spark. And the stars are somehow involved in that process. And Enoch was shown that, I believe. And so that was where the Holy Spirit led me many years ago. And people were seeing this footage and it wasn't making them go crazy. It was making them come to God. They were coming to the Bible. They were going, oh my goodness, like somebody saw it and they said, I'm just speechless. I've been a drug addict for the last 13 years, and I'm going to go
Right.
get a Bible today, right now. I'm going to start reading it. This is true because you can see it. And I know you can't really see it in this presentation, but when you watch the footage of it and you see how they filmed it and them going up there, slow-mo, these things shooting down out of a barrier, the ripples moving across the firmament, it's powerful. And it's literally like you can go to our YouTube channel and go to Firmament playlist and just all day just look at these things, the footage we have, declassified documents, and not just lightning sprites. There's other lights. Remember, he
That's
put lights
crazy
in the
looking.
firmament of heaven. And I used this little meme that I made years ago, but I found out when I saw a comet about a month and a half or so ago. I'm trying to remember when it was. There was a comet in the night sky. My neighbors knew about it, and they were like, "Did you know about this comet?" And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And
Hmm.
we went to their front porch, turned around, and you can see what looked like a flashlight shining over the horizon. And I was
Wow.
like, "That's not very bright. What is this thing?" This is not my picture, by the way, but it looked very faint. It reminded me of somebody shining a flashlight into the air.
Yep.
And so this comet right here, does this not look like a flashlight
It
shining into
does.
the air? Well, it actually is a flashlight shining into the air, but that's the trick. It
Yeah.
looks just like the comet you're seeing. Look
Identical.
at that. Look at this.
Identical, man.
And now I'm going to overlay a comet.
Wow.
Boop.
That is
Same thing.
amazing.
Same thing. A light shining through the waters or the firmament. And right here, when you start finding high quality photos of these things, there's waters above the firmament. There's lights. There's all these things going on for appointed times. You can even see this light. It's shining through a barrier. It almost looks like it's shining through water and then just pouring out light. I mean, it is just gorgeous when you get high quality photos of these things, not images, but actual photos. And they
Yeah.
reveal a lot about what's above us. It's not deep space. It's not ice crystals
Hmm.
reflecting sunlight. This stuff is easy to prove that it's a light source shining through a medium. They continue shining as they move across the sky, and it's for a reason. And these things were happening on holy days this year. People have been
Oh, that's
trying to
weird.
figure out the calendars, and they're going crazy trying to figure this stuff out. And I had a friend of mine who's like, I've been doing all this advanced math. His name is George Newber. He's like, I think we're a week off. Well, the week that was supposed to be the real Feast of Tabernacles, that comet pops up. I'm just like,
Wow.
maybe there's some verification
For
here
signs
with
and for
these things.
seasons.
Yeah, signs and seasons, and that word seasons means appointed times. He has
Oh,
his own holy
interesting.
days. And so it's really, really cool. And
So what
this
do
is
you?
something
I
brand
don't
new.
know. You can't. There's a lot of stuff that we can't prove. Like.
Yeah,
But that's the thing. Like the science community, they're so narcissistic that they think they have all the answers and stuff. And so when someone questions someone that believes biblical cosmology, they're like, "What about this?" And you explain it. "What about this?" And you explain it. "What about this?" And then you're like, "Well, I'm not sure." Aha! It's not right. It's not
yeah,
true then because you can't explain it. That doesn't really make
yeah.
sense. But what do you think comets are? Because that's probably a question somebody would ask.
Comets. Yeah, comets are literally that, a light in the firmament. And you can see that it's a light. You can see that there's a light source shining through the barriers above us, and there's multi layers, I believe. And so those multiple layers with light shining through it would look just like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a light in a vacuum. And so
Right.
it is
You can
right
definitely
there.
see the
It's
water.
predictable. It's a clock. They can predict these things most of the times. Occasionally they'll get something. They're like, whoa, there's this new light in the sky. We don't know what it is. And
Right.
so the lying signs and wonders are going to come from above. And when it talks about it in Revelation, fire coming down from above, we're seeing a lot of miniature aspects of that now with the big rocket shows coming back down to Earth from
Mm-hmm.
above with fire coming down from them. Like there's a lot of really prophetic things going on now,
It really
revelation
is.
type things. And the real science, though, it's the coolest thing. When you put the Father's word to the test, you're going to find things that aren't in science books yet,
Yeah.
and there probably won't be in the fake science books that we have in schools.
Right.
But my students were investigating rainbows because I was always in awe of the fact that in order for me to make a rainbow inside, I need a glass barrier, a flashlight, water, or some sort
Mm.
of mirror in the water. And I was
Yeah.
like, how do you make a curved rainbow? Well, you need a curved glass surface and a light source with water in it shining through. And I'm like, wait a minute. Rainbows are very similar. A light source being the sun in the firmament, and we've got that curved barrier, and it shines down, and we get these rainbows that our Father made as a covenant that He's not going to flood the earth, and the rainbow is shaped like a dome with no holes in it, showing us He's not going to open up the firmament again. He's not going to open
Mm.
the windows of heaven. The
Wow.
windows of heaven, that Hebrew word for windows, it's like a sluice. Basically, one of those, if you have a dam where they open it up to let water out, those little openings, that's a sluice. They hold back water. They're
Hmm.
barriers that hold back water. And so rainbows being an essential ingredient to make one curved. You need a curved surface usually, and you
Wow.
need water and a light source. And I thought, let's put this to the test. And they were doing that, and they were trying to make a rainbow with just using the ingredients of the globe, which is a light source and water, and that's it. And you're having trouble. You're finding difficulty making them without using things that the globe model would have, or the biblical Earth model would have. And my thought was, if the dome is higher in the middle, what if rainbows are lower as you get closer to the outer edges where the firmament's not as high, places near Antarctica? And
Mm.
so I started looking into this. This is like
Dude,
mind
that's
blowing.
crazy.
I could not believe this. I went to Canada and Alaska and places looking at rainbows and comparing them. And in Canada, I was seeing some triple rainbows that were super duper tall. And I mean, just massive. Look at the
That's
arch of the
crazy,
rainbow
dude.
up north. And now here's Antarctica, the flattest rainbow that I've ever seen in my life. And it was filmed by people from the BBC when they were filming The Frozen Planet. And so they went out there and filmed a
Wow,
flat
dude.
rainbow near where the dome is lower. And that, to me, is something that you guys can investigate along with us. I'm not saying it's factual evidence of the firmament, but I'm saying if there's a light in the firmament and the firmament gets lower and closer
Mm.
to the ground, maybe the rainbows will be closer to the ground. It's a theory I've had. And the images, I was just like impressed when I started pulling this stuff up. I was
This
like,
is
oh my
amazing
goodness,
research,
this
dude.
is like brand new science stuff. This should be in our science books, and it probably will be. Just biblical Earth. There's other scientists who are out there shooting up signals, and they claimed this was back in I forget what year this was, 2014 or somewhere around there. It was a while back. These universities, this is the University of Colorado Boulder, has discovered an invisible shield, and they said they estimated, they could be wrong, 7,200 miles above Earth. I don't know how they got those numbers, but that's what they said, and they tell us it's almost like these electrons are running into a glass wall in space.
No
That's what
way.
Baker says, and he was the lead author. And he says, somewhat like the shields created by force fields on Star Trek that were used to repel alien weapons, we are seeing an invisible shield blocking these electrons. And so they were talking about this, and they said it is a hard, fast boundary. And they publish these things, and guess what? NASA comes along. Let me find their article here. They said, "Oh, no, no, no. This is a man-made barrier. We've seen it. Our probes have spotted this man-made barrier, not God-made barrier, man-made, and it's wrapping around the world. And it was made by man because of all these signals they're putting out there. And so NASA has a cover story, even when what they're hiding gets found to some degree. They have to have a cover story." And you
Mm-hmm.
find documents that are declassified from the 1950s when we allegedly had it figured out, that they are assuming it says derived their let me just read this whole thing. The near sun halo, near sun. These halos are close to the sun. Think about that. 98 million miles away or 92 million miles away. They're saying near sun halos. And also from the sun on a surface perpendicular to these rays, the dissertation contains a certain formula of the brightness of the sky, taking into consideration only the brightness of the first order and derived on the assumption of a flat Earth. And
That's
so they're
crazy,
talking
dude.
about that here. Read on down to the very bottom. They are measuring the brightness along the almucanter of the sun and 5 to 6 points of the firmament located at various distances. So they're talking about the assumptions of the flat Earth and the firmament in the same page, right there, declassified in 2000, put out there, published in
That
1953.
is
So
amazing.
really, yeah, really cool stuff talking about it. They knew about it. Let me see what that slide is right there. There you go. But the Van Allen belts essentially were a cover story for the firmament, why we can't get back to the moon. And this was a cover story invented in 1958, but some of the Apollo sun god astronauts didn't even know about it when they were interviewed later by people questioning the authenticity of the moon landing. And they say, well, they didn't affect us, and I don't even think they'd been discovered yet. You know, like they're saying these things as if, well, if we went through it, surely we accounted for it.
You're
Well,
right.
they had to have gone through it because it
Yeah.
was a less distance away than the moon. So they passed right through it, went to the moon, came back many times, playing golf, dancing around, didn't care, weren't worried about it. And so that barrier is a cover story to keep us from going back to the moon, keeping us trapped in what they call low Earth orbit. And we're not going around a ball. They're going up as high as they can go, rocket ships pointing back down, peacefully guarding this place, the ice, the circle of the dry land, the circle of the earth around us, called Antarctica, and they've been guarding it peacefully. Think about
Mm.
that. Since 1959, all these world powers studying ice. How long can you study ice?
Right.
Like, how long? And they've studied it for years and years and years and years, and they're still doing it peacefully. And the Antarctic Treaty isn't set to expire until the 2040s, and it doesn't really expire. They're just going to kind of like revamp it probably and put in more measures in place if the return hasn't happened. But the
So
two things,
for
go
anybody
ahead.
that this is like their first time ever hearing any of this stuff, they don't understand the model or anything. Why was there some treaty that you can't go to Antarctica?
Yeah, yeah. Why can't we go there? We can go up north,
Well,
60th north parallel
I'm asking you
to.
like what would be kind of the answer? Like,
Oh, the answer? Because if you were to explore, you would find out that shoreline. It's not an 11,000-mile circumference. There's
mm-hmm,
definitely some more land out there. I'm not going to say it's an infinite plane. I can tell that the firmament goes downward as you get close to Antarctica. There are outer
right,
boundaries. The Book of Enoch talks about them, these mountains, these resources out there. I mean, mountains, these individual mountains that are made of materials that would be worth zillions of dollars.
right,
And the man himself, Admiral Byrd, the one that was doing the operations back then, high jump and deep freeze, he says there's mountains of coal. He's kind of verifying some of the things in
wow,
Enoch. He's like, yeah, there's these. It's a treasure trove. It's a very rich place of these things and resources. And I'm thinking, wow, these countries should be fighting over that. There's an energy crisis, right?
right.
And now let's just close it down. After he says that, it gets closed off. No one's allowed to go there. There's the Antarctic Treaty. NASA forms. Operation Fishbowl happens. Operation High Jump, or not High Jump, Operation Dominic and Fishbowl were pretty much the same operation there.
Which is
Fishbowl,
what they're trying to launch
yeah,
rockets to hit the dome, and
yeah. They said that
because
when they
this
shot
is
nuclear bombs up to the as high as they could go near the ionosphere, they caused an aurora light.
oh
What? Why would shooting a bomb into the air cause an aurora light if you're shooting it up where deep space is? Because that's what they were aiming for, seeing how it would affect the ionosphere and communication, allegedly. That's a really dumb reason to shoot bombs into the air. Let's see
right,
how it affects the air above us.
right.
Like,
This is
no,
the
they were
modern
trying.
day Tower of
Yeah,
Babel. Like the
yeah,
God destroyed a building, a tower that was going too high up, and now man is like, you know what? We're not going to build a building. We're going to ignite rockets into the sky, and I think they want to escape. Because the serpent in the garden, that was his whole lie, was that you're in a prison, that Yahweh has put you in this garden prison and he's trying to keep you from evolving. And so, the heart of man is desperately wicked. And if these elitists think, oh, there's something more out there, and we are in a prison, they're going to try to blast that thing. And it's pretty crazy to think about what they're
yeah,
trying to do, because if they were able to blast it, which I don't think they can, it would just flood. The whole world would
yeah.
flood. The
I know.
windows of heaven would be opened up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and they just stopped instantly. Once they set up a big bomb, they said, "Oh, they just shut down the operation." They said, "Oh, we ran out of funding," and they quit doing it.
Wow.
And so the Most High laughs at the things they're doing. Like, it's not they can't do it. He knew what they were going to try to do before they tried to do it when he was making the firmament on day 2 of creation. And
Mm,
that's why when he was talking in Genesis 11, when he's talking about what they're going to do, what they're trying to do, he said, for one, it's not impossible. If they're trying to reach the firmament, it's not impossible. If
yeah.
they're united, they have the same language. But then he says, this is only the beginning of what they will do.
Right.
Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. And so
Amazing.
that's only the beginning. He didn't say, oh, they're going to do this. I'm going to send them out and that's going to fix it. He says, this is only the beginning. And so that sounds like he knows they're planning to do more. They're going to be shooting bombs up. They're going to be creating these lies that people are going to believe. And a lot of the things in Revelation, that Armageddon, the threat from above, uniting people to fight against a threat, you have to believe there's a threat from above. You can't
Right.
believe in the you got to believe in aliens. Now Congress is saying aliens are real. Oh,
Yeah.
we've got specimens and they're non-human origin and they have these technologies and they're slowly admitting these things to get the mystery of it and for us to be like, I was right. I believed in aliens my whole life. I watched Unsolved Mysteries from the 80s to the 90s, and
Yeah.
I've been a space fan ever since. Like, I was a space fan. I loved
Me too.
NASA stuff. I mean, like, watching the STS rocket launches and the dramatic, how they dramatized it, the shaking, and
Yeah.
then you get older and it's like, oh my goodness, space movies are everywhere now. And I would watch The Martian with my classroom. I
Wow,
started
dude.
teaching science my first day on the job. They handed me a globe and said, hey, you're taking over this class, because I got kind of thrown into a really cool situation where it was earth science. Imagine that. My very first
Wow.
ever teaching gig after starting out trying to get my certification after college. And they said, we're doing the Coriolis effect. Here's a blow up globe. Here's a dry erase marker. Have at it. And so I was doing that back then. And it's really cool. The Father's grace and mercy started me out that way just to show me, stay humble. This was you. You know, you
That's
were a
amazing.
spaceman. You loved this stuff. You believed this stuff. You were excited about it. It seemed innocent. And now you're finding
Yeah.
out it's not innocent. It's against his truth. It's Tower of Babel 2.0. And so be careful when you see the world powers agreeing on stuff. But I
Yeah.
want to kind of move on because I don't want to take up too much time. I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
questions.
Have
There's
you
a lot of
seen
people who
the
have seen the
this
curvature.
have you seen this encyclopedia from 19 what time, when was it? Oh man, encyclopedia from
Oh, Britannica, the 50, or is it like the 1950s, 53
yeah,
maybe?
1958.
58.
Encyclopedia Britannica from 1958.
Talks
And
about
what it
the,
says.
it doesn't it say there's like, you can, the structure, like a dome like structure, 13,000 feet high when they were exploring out there.
Right.
And
Yeah, it
they
says
even get
a
the latitude. Like they tell you where it's at on them, like how far out it is. And it's out there beyond the ice wall that they had to go over with Operation High Jump. And when you look at these places, there's places called Dome in Antarctica. Lots of places
no way.
called Dome. How many places called Dome? A lot. There's even a
That's crazy.
Deception Island, right when you get to the
Deception
start of
Island.
it. Deception Island and a bunch of places called Dome, and I started looking into it, and all those places are flat. Why would you name a place Dome? Dome A, Dome B, Dome
That's
C.
weird,
It's
dude.
like that's kind of fishy when we
Yeah.
believe in that, and you're naming places after that, and there's a Masonic lodge down there, and there's, it's like it's weird.
So
Why would they do that?
this screenshot is from a video. If you can look it up yourself on BitChute, it's not going to be on YouTube, of course, for some reason. But look up 1958 Encyclopedia Dome, and the guy shows the book. He shows all the copyright and all that. Opens it up, and the word he's looking up here, it might be Antarctica. I can't remember what he's looking up, but or it's firmament or something. But when you read it, it says with a dome 13,000 feet high, and it says the longitude and latitude. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I've never saw a mountain and said, "Oh, look, a dome." And
Yeah,
if there was a dome structure that high, that would be pretty. It would be on a map. And go to Antarctica on a map. Go to that place where it listed the latitude and longitude. It's
yeah.
flat. It's a cartoon. It's a flat cartoon. A place that we've been studying for decades. We don't even
Wow,
have aerial photos of it on Google Maps, but everywhere else we
wow.
do. Why is that one place stitched together like a quilted cartoon from? I mean, not Nintendo 64 did better with their graphics. Like it's pitiful. And
Wow.
so that's Antarctica. It's mysterious. They want it to be that way. They don't want you to go there. 14, I forget how many thousands of dollars. Back when I first tried to get a trip there, because I was wanting to go there. My wife likes to travel. It's like, let's go to Antarctica. This will be
Yeah.
fun. Here it is, 2018, 2017. And she's like, how much is it?
Oh
$40,000
my
one
goodness,
way. I was
bro.
like, well, I guess we can't go. That's what I'm making a year almost.
Yeah.
Like can't do that. So that
That's an
limits
easy way
people
to
like
keep
me
people
from
from
going.
exploring, right?
Yeah, the wealthy will go. Yeah, they're already part of a club. And
What were you
so,
showing in the previous
oh,
slide?
first picture here, curvature. We've all seen the curve. I grew up seeing it daily. It's in every single photo from high altitudes, and
Yeah.
you see stuff like this because of a certain lens, but you
Right.
also see it warping in the other direction, which actually proves that it's flat because you can
Yeah.
only bend a flat horizon both directions. A
Right.
curved line, you can't bend it both ways perfectly, and so there's tests you can
Notice
do to prove that.
the horizon is in the upper half of the photograph. If the
Mm,
horizon was in the lower half of the photograph, it would be bending the other way. It'd be concave. But
yep.
all these
Yeah.
pictures, the horizon's in the upper half of the photo, which is bending it with that fisheye lens.
Yeah, classic fisheye lens trickery there. You can make any flat surface curved. And so that's what's been done. And you can debunk the curve by using a fisheye lens and trying to make a curved line bend perfectly both ways. Can't do it. I've
Mm.
tried. Same with lasers. You can debunk the curved water aspect with a laser. We've had lots of people doing this. My friend Ben from Taboo Conspiracy and one of his buddies from FE Core, I'm trying to remember his name. I think it was Matt. Got a tripod, went across a lake 21 miles, meaning that their tripod should have been 218 feet tall to see the laser. was right
Wow.
above the water, just 5 feet above the water. And not only could you see the laser, and they say it's the laser curving around. Does this laser light look curved?
Oh my
No.
goodness.
Going in a straight line, and you can see the reflection on the water as well. So if that was reflection on the water they're seeing, the reflection on the water would have to jump up and go around the curve,
Yeah.
straight up 90 degrees, and then curve around along with this laser, and then drop below it and look like it's a reflection on the water. You can't have that. If
Yeah.
the laser can curve, okay, maybe it can. Lasers can curve in certain mediums, but not the reflection on the water, because you wouldn't be able to
Hmm.
see that. So you can see both,
Wow.
and I had to adjust the brightness. They do this at night. There's a lot of water in our air to cut through. The
Yeah.
laser will spread out, and that water aspect is huge because when you watch a sunset, you've been able to stare at it with your eyes without sunglasses. When it sets at a beach, it's an orange glow. It's beautiful. You can watch it go down. Try doing that at noon. You'll go blind.
Yeah.
Why? Because we're staring through a 60-mile high. We're underwater. We've got all this air and water stacked up on top of us. It's like we're in a swimming pool of air. It
Hmm.
has its limits, its density. It can only stack up so high. And so we can't see very far because we're staring through water, just like you can't see the bottom of the ocean.
Right.
People say, well, you can't see the sun. It goes dark. That means the world's a globe. You can't see the bottom of the Marianas Trench from the surface. That doesn't mean that the ocean is all curved right there in between you and the ocean
Right.
seafloor. It's just there's water filtering out light. Submarines need lights for a reason. Sunlight will only go so far. So we have our limitations. And you see that with lasers, they kind of can only go about 25 miles or so. I think 25 miles is the record, maybe a little further than that now. But line of sight um, signal, or not line of sight signals, eyesight records have gone beyond this right here. But this is just a good photo to show you that your horizon at a camera height of 1 foot, 12 inches off the ground, should be 1.2 miles away. But they saw these two oil rigs. One of them is 9.4 miles away. Where's the horizon? It's behind that,
Behind it.
behind something. That's impossible for the horizon to scorpion tail upwards and appear behind something when it should be in front of it. You should not be able to see this thing right here. And so right here, got the measurements for you. And that's the cool thing about biblical earth scientists. They give you all the numbers. You don't have to wonder what the numbers are. They show you how far away things are using
Yeah.
that 0.66 feet per mile squared formula. And you can do the math, and the curve's not there. Sometimes it may appear to be there due to the magnification properties of water, but world record photos right here, missing 3/4 of a mile of
Wow.
curvature. 3/4 of a mile. If you've ever ran 3/4 of a mile, imagine that being stacked straight up. That's how much curvature should be between you and these mountains in the distance, 275.267 miles away. So it's a world record for a reason. And the lighting does have to be a special way because that atmosphere, it's filtering out light. That's why this mountain here is more clear than the ones in the distance. As they get
Right.
further away, they get smokier. That's why the Smoky Mountains are smoky. There's water making them smoky. Eventually, they're going to disappear into that water. And so visibility will change with moisture. And that's just a known science. It's not a conspiracy. You can look that up. Sometimes you can see right in front of your face in the morning. I'm driving to work. I can't see in front of my car two
Right.
feet because there's fog. It's water in the air. And so that's a small scale version of what we see in this large scale picture here. World records. And here's another really far one right here, 45.5 miles. So how much that should be hidden by. And so really, really far, seeing all the way to Crete from Israel. Large
Wow.
distances, but that's just line of sight. People can say refraction. Back in 1901, Guglielmo Marconi sent a line of sight signal. And if you don't know what that is, it's a signal like a radio signal that doesn't curve. It only goes in a straight line. Physicists told him it's going to be impossible. Don't even try to go across the Atlantic. The Earth curvature will stop that signal. And this guy must have known something because he said, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to
Mm.
crank up the power. And he made that signal cross the Atlantic, 2,100 miles. That's 504 miles of missing curve.
That's
That was back in
insane.
1901. Do you think we've gone further since then?
Wow, bro.
We have. We've gone from England to Australia in 1918.
England to Australia with what? This
England to
this type
Australia,
of
same signal.
radio signal?
Yep. Tower
Wow.
height, 500 meters. The tower would have needed to be 38,596,302 feet tall, or 7,310 miles tall to make that.
So what are the
And people,
excuses? What are people saying that why is this
refraction.
happening?
Refraction. It's
Refraction.
bouncing. It's bouncing off of the ionosphere hundreds of times off of a gas barrier, And these things, they don't bounce; they just go in a straight line. And so
Yeah,
they're
because
saying it's
that would even
bouncing and
prove a
spinning
firmament
around.
if it's bouncing
Yeah,
off something. I mean,
bouncing off of a barrier above us. So curvature or not, it would need a firmament. And so they're saying refraction. And nobody really talks about this one. When I bring this one up, they're like, "Oh, well, you had to use Google Maps." Like they kind of deflect. But
right.
that is possible on a biblical Earth, sending signals that far. And reading old papers about this, they say there was a radio roof, what they called a radio roof, where when the sun, excuse me, the sun would come out, it's like it would mess up their ability to communicate. So when the sky turns blue and it's electrified with that sunlight, it's like a
Yeah.
neon light. It turns blue. And so they said it's like a radio roof. It's like somebody breathed the breath over the ether. They called it the ether back then, and the ether used to be in the periodic tables, and now they removed it. And so it's really really interesting the things they're doing. But the proofs are stacking up. Not just line of
Mm.
sight signals. We have Polaris, which never moves. Go out there,
That's a
point
good
something
one.
at it. It'll be pointing at it all year long. And there's a star on Orion's belt that the ancients they lined up their pyramids with. That's why the pyramids are usually coming in threes right here. They worshipped Orion. Look at the pose he's making. Does that not look like the Statue of Liberty? And
Yep.
all of these things got the hand in the air, the left foot forward. Baphomet pose is like that. They're always like that. Satan summoning his legions. So they
Wow.
worshipped Orion. That's why NASA now has their Orion spacecraft. And so it's a big part of their worship. And the cool thing about this one star, it stays on the equator all year. So if you have one star staying on
Interesting.
the equator all year, one star not moving all year, that's 2 points of reference that are stationary throughout the year. And so to me, that proves we're not going around the sun on a tilting ball in all these
Right.
different directions. It's impossible with those points of reference there. And you can see that even star trails with a graph here showing you remember 500,000 miles per hour, that's how fast we're going through the galaxy because of the Big Bang invented by a Jesuit priest. And we're going around the sun at 66,000 miles per hour or 66,600. And so the green represents our Big Bang explosion speed, 8,000 miles per minute. Okay, so think
Wow.
about that. If you're going almost 8,000 miles a minute, that is really, really, really fast. And
Real
so
fast.
every 60 seconds, the Earth would go the distance of its own diameter with that speed. And then around the sun, right here at second fastest motion, still shows up on the graph. Then you get to our spin, it's puny, tiny little dotted line here. However, when you look at star trails, which of those speeds do you think would impact the night sky? The one where you're moving the distance of your own diameter every minute? No, 16 and a half miles a minute right here. That's what makes perfect circles. Not spirals, not weird shapes because of all those other speeds. Don't worry about those. Your slowest motion, that's what makes perfect circles. That's what affects the night sky, they tell us. And
Wow.
so the speeds are really, really fast, hundreds of times faster than a bullet. It's a
Can I
roller coaster type motion. Go ahead.
can I show something? I want to show because this made me think a lot when I was looking into this subject. Okay, so this is Earth's orbit around the sun at different times of the year, and I don't know if you can see my mouse, but picture
Yeah.
you're at this one on the far right. If you're on Earth and you're looking at the night sky at the stars, you would have to look right at nighttime because nighttime is always going to be the opposite side of the sun. So during this time of the year, this is winter, it says, Northern Hemisphere winter, you're always having to look towards the right. Now imagine you're on that Earth and now it is late June. It's on the far left side. Which way are you having to look at the stars at night? Now you're having to look to the left.
That way.
So how are you ever going to see the same stars in December when you have to look to the right? And now you're on the other side of this gigantic ball of light that's 1,000 times bigger than Earth. It's 93 million miles away from Earth. And now you're on the other side of it. And you're having to look at stars the opposite direction. How could you ever see the same
Yeah.
stars year round?
Yeah. Put that to the test. Do what that look at this illustration Mikey has. Go outside, look up at the night sky for 6 months. That's what I thought. I'm going to be on the other side of that sun if this is a heliocentric model. I
Yeah.
never got to the other side of the sun and saw the stars on the other side. And I asked one of my coworkers, I said, why don't we see the stars on the other side of the sun? She's like, I don't know. And I was like,
Yep. Good
I don't
answer.
either. Oh well, move along. Next
Yep.
question. So yeah, I think it's very important to test that stuff for yourself. Go look at the stars. See if we're every 6 months we're looking the other direction. And they'll say, oh, we're really small. It doesn't matter how small you are. I can't see the wall behind me for a reason because I'm facing this direction.
That's right.
And so, right here, just some little verses for the biblical crew. The world is immovable. You can look that up. First Chronicles 16:30, all throughout the Psalms. First Samuel, and I mean, just everywhere in the Word, that world being immovable, never being placed in motion. And like my dad said, and it just stuck. The earth is God's footstool. It's not His roller coaster. It's an
Ooh,
immovable. He's not riding around following a moving world. It is a footstool. And look at a footstool. It has pillars. It has that dome shape to it, that barrier, something you can set your feet on. And so he's above that circle of the earth. It's like a footstool. And so footstools don't move. And roller
that's right.
coasters, no matter how slow you go on this thing with these spiraling motions, even if you're not rotating, just sitting in a seat, you're going to feel it. And so we're not on a train. A lot of people like to use the train analogy. Throw a ball up on a train. Okay, a train has a
Right.
barrier. The train's going in a straight line. We're
Yeah.
on a pressurized ball in a vacuum chamber with an air pressure of 14.7 psi, moving half a million miles per hour, hundreds of times faster than a bullet. I
Crazy.
think 288 times faster than a bullet. Just try to picture living on a bullet that's spiraling and
Yeah.
going 288 times faster than that bullet, doing the same thing in a vacuum chamber. Life itself would be a miracle. You'd have to admit, okay, if that
Right.
were true, if it were a Big Bang heliocentric model, there has to be some sort of intelligent designer that's like, I'm a master engineer. How can I solve the problem of a ball in a vacuum and make people live on it? Make it
Yeah.
covered with water, make the water stick to it while it's doing all these roller coaster things.
How can you
Creation would have been
have
unique.
how can you have a ball in a vacuum and there be a pressure, like air, oxygen, air pressure on this earth that we can breathe. But when you fly up,
And,
up, 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 eventually you pop out and you're weightless. Like, where is that barrier? Why does it happen? Oh, gravity. It's always like, the secret answer is always gravity no matter what. But
yeah,
why is gravity pushing oxygen to earth all the time? I don't know if you're going to get into the concept
Yeah.
of
Oh,
gravity.
it's a beautiful thing. Oxygen, I should have included some of that in this presentation because I've been learning about this stuff. And you have to think of creation from there was a master engineer designing things to support his most precious creation, and that's life itself. You guys are his most precious creation, hands down. You could
Amen.
not offer him a mountain of gold for one of his elect.
That's
You
right.
can't bribe him. You are more important to anything to him. What does the Bible say his inheritance is? We're all concerned about where we go.
Mm,
What's his inheritance? His people. That's his
that's
inheritance.
right.
He's waiting
Amen.
to meet you guys. And so I
He
get
died
emotional
for
thinking
us.
about it because my whole life I've been programmed to what about me? What about what about
Right.
my inheritance? What am I going to get? Oh, I'm going to be a joint heir with the Messiah. That's good. I've been a nice person. No, we're his
Mm,
inheritance. He's our inheritance. Him and being reigning with his son, something we don't deserve to do, joint heirs with the Messiah, like it tells us. Like it's a powerful inheritance. And
amen.
so I mean, it's just you guys are important. So when he's making his creation, he's going to make it sustain life. He's going to make the air that we breathe not have the same properties as helium. Imagine if he
Right.
messed up, he wasn't that good of an engineer, and the air we needed had the same density as helium. You can look at the densities of the air we breathe. It's more dense than helium, and it's the dense air that stacks up, right?
Yep.
From the ground up. And it's going to stack up to a certain height. That's why helium balloons max out at 33 miles. They can't go higher than that. They
Wow.
they don't float in vacuum chambers. If you put a balloon in a vacuum chamber, it'll float until it reaches a vacuum and then it sinks. And so imagine
Mm,
that vacuum chamber being like a swimming pool. The helium balloon is in that swimming pool floating, right? You take out what it's floating on, the air, it's going to sink down. And so helium balloons only go until they reach the tippy top of our air. They can't go any higher, and they have a level where they stop. They cannot float in a vacuum. So it is essentially kind of like a vacuum above us, but it's really not. It has helium, it has the hydrogen gases, all those less dense gases that we don't breathe. And our gases stack up from the level where we live, the sea level, all the way above Mount Everest. He knew where his dry land was. He knew the outer limitations. We don't need air above that that's healthy
right.
enough to breathe because we're not going to be living up there. He knew when he designed the quantity of air that we needed, how much to put in there in our world to where it would cycle. And so he knew that when he made plants before he made people. He made plants on day 3. They made the air that we would need to continue having our life sustained. Of course, he gave us that initial start with the breath of life, which has kept everything in this perpetual miraculous motion. And so helium only goes so high, but when you look it up and try to find out, well, what happens to helium while we're running out of it? They say, oh, it gets sucked into the vacuum of space. Well, if it doesn't float in a vacuum and it's on top of our air, why is it getting sucked away? And why is the vacuum of space going, I only suck up helium. I don't suck up other air. I'm going to
Right.
stop with helium. Like, why would it stop with helium? Helium doesn't float in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Why is it just sucking that up? And so there's
Are you gonna
gases that
get
are
in?
less than
Are you
helium.
gonna
So
get
it's very
into
scientific.
gravity at all, or?
Not really going to get into gravity. There's a lot of density aspects, and you saw those electromagnetic properties of the firmament. That's really an advanced science lesson.
Yeah.
But essentially, things stack up based on their density. That's why so what's it called? Sulfur. I'm trying to remember the name of the gas. I'm forgetting my gases here. Let me look it up real quick.
I want
Vacuum
to
of
bring up while
space.
you're looking that up. I want to bring up a point that maybe somebody's thinking about. Um, we're told that gravity is a force that pulls things down to the core of the earth. No matter where you're at on this ball, it's forcefully pulling things to the core, and that's why we're stuck on this earth, even though it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. We're not getting thrown off of it. So ask yourself the question: how come when you let go of a helium balloon, it doesn't drop to the ground? It should. It's super light. If this is a force that's literally pulling things to the ground, it can hold dump trucks and buildings and oceans to this ball that's spinning so fast we should all be flying off of it. Why does a
Yeah,
helium balloon go up? Why does a butterfly not just fall to the ground? Why does a dandelion float in the air? Because it's not a force. That's like saying, and people will say, well, because it's too light. That's like saying Arnold Schwarzenegger is so strong that he can push a train car, but he can't lift a balloon. It makes
yeah,
absolutely no sense. So what's happening with this theory of gravity? It is a theory. You can look it up. It's not a fact. It's a theory of gravity, a well accepted one. But we're talking about buoyancy and density. We're talking about gases and the way they stack up. And that's what makes helium go up because it's lighter than air. And we've heard that all our life that helium floats because it's lighter than air, but that defies gravity. The whole idea that gravity is this force pulling things to the center of the earth.
yeah. And helium has a known density. And I was buying helium balloons, and when you scan your items at self checkout, it says put the item on the scale. And I was buying a helium balloon. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And
That's
so
funny.
it has a density though, 0.1785 grams per liter at sea level. Our air has a density of 1.225 grams per liter at sea level. And so a balloon that's got air in it is going to weigh more than a balloon that doesn't have air in it. But a balloon that has helium is going to be floating up on that air as if the air is water and it's a boat.
Right.
It's going upward. And so things stack up from sulfur hexafluoride. That's the name of the gas I was trying to think of. That's the one, if you breathe it in, which I find this fascinating. You breathe in sulfur hexafluoride, your voice gets real deep. You breathe in
Right.
helium, which is less dense than air, your voice gets real high pitch. I think that's fascinating that the two are like opposites. One's going downward. It's going to find its lowest point. You can fill up a tank with sulfur hexafluoride, an invisible gas. You can't see it. Take a boat made out of aluminum foil. You can make it float on sulfur hexafluoride. It looks
Hmm.
like it's defying gravity. You can't see the sulfur hexafluoride. It's there,
Wow.
but it floats on top of it. Remove and take some of that sulfur hexafluoride, pour it into the boat. It's going to sink, just like you're pouring water in it. And so that sulfur hexafluoride, that's why you find it way down deep in ocean hydrothermal vents, because it's gone down. It sinks down into the world. It keeps going downward. It's not like the oxygen that our Father master engineered to go where
Hmm.
his created life lives. And trees make that. And it doesn't float off like helium. When trees make it, it goes to his beloved creations. And
Wow.
so he's a master designer. And when you start seeing it like that, it makes sense why he
Amen.
made it, the density that he made it, why he made the water that we need for life to float, defy gravity, float up. Trillions of
Wow.
pounds of water just went over our heads the other day when it was raining. Trillions. I'm talking to my students on the other side of the country, and they're like, "Yeah, it's all cloudy and rain's coming down." I'm like, "You do realize we have trillions of pounds of water moving across the sky,
That's
defying
crazy.
gravity, and nobody cares. It's just like it's
That's
raining."
crazy, dude.
Yeah. Our Father designed it that way at creation. He designed it. He had to engineer it to do what it does, to give us life, to give us water, to give us air. And we can't even do it. Like the cells in the water, the algae, they are solar powered. They can use sunlight to make food. and they can make oxygen. Like, imagine if we were like, hey guys, this inventor just made a solar panel that makes oxygen. We don't need trees anymore. We don't need electricity. Like, that's what his
Hmm.
creation can do. It's extremely, extremely advanced, powerful stuff. And like, it just, I marvel at it.
Oh
I mean,
man.
it's really, it's really cool how much thought he put into his creation, and the biblical earth model, even after the flood, having properties where you see it opening up. And we read that because remember, he called the firmament heaven.
Yeah.
And that's where you start seeing stuff like this little story here. I missed this one where he's being baptized. He's got witnesses that see this. People go, why didn't Jesus talk about the flat earth? Well, because earth is just dry land. It's not really flat. So he didn't have to use those words. But it says it came to pass when he was getting baptized that Jesus, also being baptized and praying, imagine that, the Messiah praying, showing us how to live while he's being baptized. He's praying. He's in the middle of praying while he's being baptized, talking to
Wow.
his Father. The heaven was opened, that firmament was opened, and the Holy Ghost descended in a bodily shape like a dove upon him. And so he didn't need to stop and go, hold on, guys. I know y'all believe in the globe. The firmament's opening up. I'll explain later.
Hmm.
No, they believed in the biblical earth model. They weren't shocked. You never hear one account of somebody going, oh my goodness, I believed in the globe. What's this expanse opening up? No, they
Wow.
believed in the Bible. They knew that he called that firmament heaven, that it was still there. The windows of heaven were closed. And to close a window, you need a wall attached to them or some sort of barrier. And so he didn't need to give them a science lesson, but he did tell them, guys, he said, guys, as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
Yep.
He's telling them about the days of Noah. And if you look back to Noah, he was a conspiracy theorist until the fountains of that firmament up above us were opened
Yeah.
and all those rains started pouring down. Not the rain, but the water from the firmament above that he separated with day two of creation, lifting those waters up. They were coming down. Very similar to Noah. Us being in those days of Noah, they're corrupting all flesh. Biblical earth believers, people that still believe in the Bible, will be called conspiracy theorists, just like Noah, until that firmament
Yep.
opens when he returns, parts like a scroll. Every eye sees him, not an image of him on a tablet, not some technological advancement. No, every eye will see him when
Yeah.
he returns. And so that's possible because the biblical earth model is real. The heaven is going to part. And if there's still waters above the firmament, he's not going to flood the earth. Those waters are going to part. And it's probably why when he set his people free, he parted the waters. And when they were brought into the promised land, he parted the waters. So the Most High is capable of doing just that, parting the waters, parting the firmament. And so it's a powerful journey. There's so much proof out there, but put it to the test. I encourage all of you, don't take our words for it. I know we get called Bible thumpers and all these different things and science deniers.
Right.
That's okay. Think of us as that, but put it to the test, and you're going to find out the word of our Father will hold up to any test you throw at them. The wisdom of this world is going to fall away. It's foolishness for that reason. And so 1 Corinthians 3:18 through 19, that's what we encourage all of you to do and become fools with us, put it to the test. It's fun, but you are going to lose a lot of street cred. All the
Yep.
people that think you're wise, because I remember nobody thought I was foolish until I was like, okay, now you're just really like all of a sudden you just lost IQ points. No matter
Yeah.
what your degree is, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done. We have literal doctors and people working at universities who are right there being called fools, and they're in documentaries. And oh, speaking of documentaries, um, let me tell you this because I forgot about that. There's a good documentary coming out this Saturday. I think it's Saturday. I could be wrong. I think it might be Friday night or Saturday night. I have to look. Um, there's a documentary coming out on YouTube. It's already out on Amazon. It's
Really.
already out on the Roku channel. And it's a biblical cosmology documentary. And my brother and I were in it, and a bunch of other people were in it, people that work at universities. And
What's it
so
called?
it's called Origins Untold Ancient Cosmology. And so it's a really, really, really good one. Well done, high quality. It's not forceful, it's not mean. Just giving you some good talking points, kind of the stuff we're talking about tonight. And they're following the journey of a skeptic, a guy who really was. He's not one of us, a believer like us back then. He was a legit skeptic going
Wow.
into it. He's like, all right, if you guys want me to do this documentary, I'll do it. And I'll go through and I'll ask people questions, but I'm not going to buy into it right away. I'm going to actually look into it for myself. And so that's what he's been doing. And it's really high quality film. Origins Untold. It'll be available on YouTube for those of you who are using YouTube. I'm assuming most of you are now, but that's what
Hmm.
it's going to be available on this weekend. And so we're going to be going live. And I wished I had my phone with me so I could see the time. There it is. Origins Untold, Ancient Cosmology. Big
Awesome. And
deal.
this is
Really good.
on, so it's not out yet, but it will be on Roku and it will be on
It is
Amazon
on the
Prime.
Roku channel. It's already on the Roku. So if you're at home
Oh,
and you want to watch it on the Roku, it's there. Roku channel. You can even go on the website, therokuchannel.com, and look it up. Origins Untold, Ancient Cosmology. And I believe Amazon Prime has it. So it's a good one to share with loved ones. I mean, watch it yourself if you still have questions. And so if
yeah,
you guys have questions now, I'd love to answer some before we have to go.
definitely.
You
I see
know,
some people in here that are, one lady's saying that her husband doesn't believe in this stuff and she's trying to figure out how to convey some of this scientific talk you're saying to him, but this would be a great date night movie,
yeah,
Origins Untold, because it's coming from the eyes of a skeptic. So it's kind of like you get to weigh out the evidence. That's what I love to do on this channel. I love to look at all the evidence and weigh it out. Whether it's the topic of the rapture, whether it's the topic of what happens when you die, or any of these topics, I want to look at, okay, here's all the verses that they say, and here's all the verses that say something else. Let's study it out. And
yeah,
so I think we don't even have to go into giving the evidence for the globe model because we've all been indoctrinated knowing it, and learning
yeah.
all these things. So we're just looking at, what does the Bible say? What does science say? And man, I appreciate you so much coming on here and sharing what you've got with us. And I'm sure we'll do some more talks about it. I wanted to
Yeah.
promote again your Bible school or your science class for
Science.
homeschoolers or whoever wants to be in it. There's no age limit, right? You can be an
Yeah.
adult and do this.
Yeah, well, we have essentially two younger age classes. Earth's Foundation, that's our biggest class. That is Earth Science it was originally based on like sixth grade standards, but you can be any grade. My daughter's second grade, she's in my class. Second grade,
Wow.
sometimes it just depends on the younger they get, the less you're able to use because it's geared towards, elementary to middle school age students. But our
Right.
fundamental breakdown class is our other earth science class, and you can be high school, college, 80, 90, whatever, wherever you want to start your learning journey with this stuff. And we've got parents going down, sitting down with their children learning, and we have people that are post college coming in taking classes. And so we have people of all ages, and it's been a major blessing. Best students I've ever had. We have fun together. We laugh together. We are learning things. We're praying together. They took prayer out of school, and we've been
Yeah.
fortunate to bring it back. And so it's been a blessing. And our two life science classes are also a blessing. I have an Intro to Intelligent Design, which is again more of like a middle school life science class, and then we have our Biological Design, which is a high school biology. You're going to learn everything you learn in high school biology from an intelligent design perspective without bias, destroying evolution. So there's a little bit of
Amen.
bias there. I mean, we're biased against the wisdom of the fallen there, the ones who said separate Moses from science. We're going to get rid of
Yeah.
that concept and bring Moses back, bring back the proofs of the Red Sea crossing. And it's funny, I got observed last year teaching that lesson where I was talking about the Red Sea crossing and how this
No
guy,
way.
I was showing what I showed you guys about Charles Lyell and we got to remove Moses from science, that guy. Uh,
Wow.
Talking about him and how we have proof of the Red Sea crossing. That was my next slides. And my principal walked right in the room with his clipboard and was like, all right, show him what you
Come with
got. And
me.
I'm like,
Oh,
ooh.
really?
I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? Have a seat. Then my heart started racing. I was like, I'm about to get fired. Because this was like a
Yeah.
week after he set me down and said, you don't need to have bias when you're doing your lessons. And I was like, you would come in on the one day where I'm really doing this the way that, and I'm not saying, hey, guys, you got to believe in the Bible. I'm just saying, here's scientific evidence of the pillar of fire, not in our textbooks. I just want you to see it. I'm not going to see
Yeah.
it in a textbook, but it's there. So, yeah, it's been fun. It's been a blessing. It's been a lot of work. Yeah. Janet,
Um,
Rocha, blessings.
so the big question everybody has, why the lie? Why would they lie about the shape of the earth? Why would they do that? It doesn't even make sense. Why is this a salvational issue? Like, isn't this just a distraction? I mean, this is some rabbit hole. Why don't you just focus on Jesus, man?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you want to give your answer? I mean, I
Yeah.
think we
That's
have the
part of the
same
gospel
answer.
message, the gospel of the kingdom of heaven, this kingdom of heaven, my Father in heaven, in heaven, in heaven. It's like there's always this heaven aspect. He's above, he's the most high, because there's a
Right.
height to heaven, so there's a lot of things that have to do with end time deceptions. And they can't fake this threat from above if we believe in the firmament and we know the return's happening and we believe in the word. They can't deceive us the way they have. They can't
Right.
separate us from the Most High with their infinite space. They can't have evolution.
Yeah.
All of their demonic lies. And I think most people can agree that evolution is a demonic lie, us coming
And it's
from
in
nothing.
school textbooks. It's
Yeah,
scientists say it all around the world.
they
So
all agree on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Can't
because
question
people
that.
think how could this be one giant conspiracy where every scientist, every rocket scientist is involved? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you could say the same thing about evolution. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in every textbook, it's on every, history channel or discovery channel or whatever. Are they all in on the lie? No, they've all just been indoctrinated themselves and they're regurgitating the wisdom that they got from this world.
Yeah. The foolish wisdom. So Wes Blaze says it's the setting for the whole story.
Yeah,
Wes Blaze, a Bible scholar,
that's right.
super awesome brother, right there with a lot. I saw Geo Truth as well. George Newber, the man, the math, the legend. He hates when I say that.
So what I believe they're doing is, yeah, like Josh said, you cannot have Big Bang, Darwinian evolution, and ultimately the final deception that I believe is Satan's final opus, the final masquerade, is an alien invasion. We
Mm-hmm.
I've been believing this since 2012 that Satan is going to deceive the whole world through pretending to be a visitor from another world. Demons literally saying that they're visitants from other worlds and getting it to the point where we're embracing them. Like,
Yeah.
don't judge them. Don't you dare call them demons. They're just our space brothers. But we could never believe that there'd be visitants from other worlds if we knew where we lived. If we
Mm-hmm.
knew that there is a firmament that's hard like a vault and like molten looking glass that divides waters above the waters. There's nothing but water up there. When you look at stars up close, not from NASA, go on YouTube and look up telescope stars, real stars or something. These things look like lights underwater. They are flickering and changing color, and it literally looks like an LED light bulb in a water. It's
Yeah.
proving that the Bible's true, that these are lights in the firmament. But all of this deception, is it a salvation issue? That's what people ask. Is the mark of the beast a salvation issue? Is the final deception that's going to deceive the whole world a salvation issue? Absolutely. Can you believe in the globe and not fall for the final deception? Yes, you can. You can understand that aliens are not really aliens and they're demons and you could not fall for it. But how much more would you not fall for it if you knew exactly where you lived and you're like, there's no way,
Yeah.
this is a deception. Nobody can come from space because space isn't what we think it is. It doesn't exist. There's a glass dome up there. Nothing can come in. Nobody would fall for the lie. So
Yeah.
Satan has had to create this lie to set the stage for his last act.
Yeah. Well said. The stage has been set. They're talking about aliens in the news right now. Who are you going to
Yeah.
believe? The government now? Now they're telling us the truth because they have to. The good guys are
Yeah.
putting them under the microscope here and making them speak about alien. No, the alien stuff. Werner von Braun, one of the Nazi NASA scientists. That doesn't sound politically correct, but that's what he was. He
Mm.
came straight from Nazi Germany as a Nazi scientist to NASA, one of their founders. And this guy warned before he died, they're planning a fake alien threat. It's
Yeah.
all a lie to pretend to weaponize space, which isn't real because he put a verse about the firmament on his tombstone. He knows
That's
about the
right.
firmament, but he said they're planning this threat. It's all based on lies. And now that we know that's their final card, it makes sense to be their final thing if the millennial reign kicks off. Like, what else can you do? The enemy's bound. You can't be pulling off more deceptions after that. So that's their final card. That's it. That's what they're trying to weaponize space for. That's why they're sending all these things allegedly up there and putting lights in the sky so that we see their lights and marvel at their lights and Starlink and all these things. And yeah, it's all a deception. It's all lying signs and wonders.
Why
There it
would
is.
a why would a Nazi or why would a NASA scientist put this Bible verse, just it's like
Yeah.
just the reference, Psalm 19:1. Psalm 19:1. Let's look it up. There it is. And the heavens declare, wait, that's the heaven. And the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. This is a rocket scientist. Put this on his tombstone. He knew he didn't want to go to the grave believing a lie. And he started telling his spokesperson, what's her name? Carol Rosen.
Carol Rosen, yeah.
He started telling her the truth. He said, look, they're trying to weaponize space. I don't know why he was saying weaponize space, but he was saying they're going to create deceptions to justify why they have weapons in the heavens, weapons to fight Christ at a second coming. They're going to say it's terrorists. They're going to say it's asteroids. And ultimately, the final card, they're going to say it's aliens. And that's why they need to weaponize the heavens. And really, these elites are preparing because they know time is running out. They know Jesus is coming soon. And the Bible literally says that 3 unclean spirits like frogs are going to gather the militaries of the world to battle against the coming of God Almighty. And they're preparing for that. And that's what's happening now. And this guy put on his tombstone, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. That firmament above us proves that there's a creator. This isn't some cosmic accident where nothing exploded and created this perfect balls in space and just enough oxygen and just enough this and water, and that life just spawned on its own and crawled out of a primordial soup and turned into a monkey and evolved into a man. That eliminates the idea of God, and you can't have that idea, and you can't have the idea of Big Bang and evolution knowing that there's a firmament, that there's lights in the heavens and all these things. So when he says the firmament, in that Bible verse, the firmament declares God's handiwork. It's proof. That's why these people that work for Satan are trying to hide that firmament and say, no way, we're exploring space. We're going millions of light years out there. It's all to hide God, ultimately.
They're going to Mars, occupy Mars.
That's right. We can't go back to the moon. We lost that technology, but we got a remote control car driving around on Mars.
Yeah. And that same guy we were just talking about, Von Braun, he wrote about Elon before Elon was born.
Oh, wow.
In the 1950s, he wrote about Elon. He said the person occupying Mars, the person given the authority up there, the chief officer, is going to be given the title Elon on Mars.
Elon.
And the rockets he drew looked just like Elon. Elon, a star was born.
That's right.
Good old Elon, yeah. The good guy now, fighting for our freedom with his Soldier of Satan costume. Yeah, wow. It's all about free speech, guys. So, yeah, they're ramping it up. He's going to be a hero. I believe he's going to be a new Tony Stark character. He already is. I mean, he saved some of the flood victims with Starlink. He's going to be Tony Stark 2.0. And just wait. It'll happen. Pretty sure.
Man. Well, man, we've been going for 2.5 hours. It was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing what you got. It doesn't look like there's many questions, but if you got questions, leave them in the comments below. We look at all these comments. We respond to 98% of them, I'd like to say. And me or Josh will look at those comments. We take this stuff seriously. We believe that the truth will set you free. We believe God's word is true. We're not going to believe science falsely so-called. We want to believe what God's word says. We don't want to be deceived. We've been deceived by everything. Movies, evolution, everything. Why are we going to not question the things that we've been taught? That's what we talk about on Candid Truth. It's cool to use your brain. If you want to buy a t-shirt that says be cool, use your brain, we got a store. If you go to CandidTruthOrg, if you want to support this ministry, you can do so by going to CandidTruthOrg, and you can click the donate button. You can do so by going to Cashapp or Venmo and Zelle. Those are on the screen. And definitely go to Founded Earth Brothers YouTube channel. Click subscribe. You guys got over 100,000 subscribers and a lot of videos, a lot of informative videos. If you didn't get your answer on this video, which is impossible to answer everything, go over there and binge watch. That's something I do recommend, binge watching. So go over there and check that out.
Watch and learn along with us. We're here learning together, staying
That's
humble.
right.
Sometimes we make mistakes. We're not perfect. But
Amen.
yeah, it's fun. Mikey's one of those. Yeah, like he's saying, support him. Support humble truth seekers who are sharing things, putting themselves out there, their reputation. He
That's
didn't have
right.
to talk about this because we
Yeah.
know it's not a popular topic. You want to get
Yeah.
banned on the internet? you want to, they're like, oh, you're doing this for money. No, we're going to pick a censored topic. That's a great
I can't
strategy.
even be monetized. We got
Yeah.
rejected for monetization from YouTube. So just to
Oh,
let you
wow.
guys know,
Yeah.
if you ever see a commercial at the beginning or something, it's probably because of a copyright thing. We got refused for copyright, or we got refused for monetization for talking about controversial, hurtful
Yeah.
content.
They didn't send me the plaque when I got 100,000. They said, no, no, no. Not
Wow,
you, buddy.
dude.
You don't represent
That's
our
messed
belief
up,
system.
man.
Yes, I was so excited. Even though I know they're Illuminati triangle, I didn't really. It was just like I see all these other people getting them, and
Yeah.
it's a big number. It's a big deal, and just to see like, yeah, look, here it is, guys. Show my kids one day. No, it's like you don't get one. Some of your content was deemed not suitable for advertisers, not for viewers, and it was my Bible
So this is about
video.
money.
There's videos where I mentioned a certain name you're not allowed to say, the Messiah's name. You can't say that out loud.
Wow.
Not suitable for advertisers. It's harmful content, guys. You have
Wow,
to be
man.
careful. Yeah, in today's age. But yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, and guys, please support Mikey. Supporting ministries is a ministry. You keeping
That's right.
ministries going is a ministry. I feel that way now because your fellow helpers, like it talks about in the Bible, and I'm starting to understand that we're all one big family working together. So thank you for all you fellow helpers, people in the chat, even if you were, moderators, all those kind of cool people, seeing those familiar people, the Tyler
Yeah.
Porters of this world, the awesomeness, Tracy Jones of this world, all of you out there, some good people in the chat, man. You got some good ones.
Awesome. Yeah, man. We love you guys. We're so thankful that you were here. You stuck it through for 2.5 hours, and hope you guys learned something. I did. I came to this thinking, oh, you're going to show me all the stuff I already know, but I learned a lot already. So thanks, man. This is a topic that just continues. We continue to get more wisdom on it the more we
Yeah,
research. So
every day. Well, awesome. We'll see you
awesome,
guys next
man.
time. We'll be back. There should be a next time.
Amen. Thank
They don't
you.
shut us down, and even if they do.
If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps get this video out into the algorithm. If you guys are new here and you're not a subscriber, click that subscribe button, click the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. We try to put out as many videos as we can. We do a lot of lives. We like to interact with you guys, and we're trying to build a community of like-minded people. So we love you. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on Candid Truth.